All right, all right, all right. I have arrived. I want to welcome everyone tonight to another edition of Shoot the Breeze, a segment of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Koku. Glad to have you all here, those of you who are going to be live, as well as those of you in the playback. You know what I like to do. For those of you who are new here, I like to jump on early at the start of the show just to give a preview of some of the topics that we're going to discuss. I try to do it as best as I can. Tonight, we're going to do a follow-up to our last conversation from last week in terms of judging young men by the clothing that they wear. We're going to factor in Gavi's advice compared to Dick Gregory's last week. We're going to talk about Africans when they put foreign religion before their race. They automatically become traitors, agree or disagree. We're going to answer the question, is African tribalism universal? Did modern West Africans kill off the ancient inhabitants of West Africa? We're going to talk about a black woman and ask if she should be applauded for something that she's doing that can be deemed as destroying the community. We also want to know, are black men who defend this type of thing the problem? And lastly, we're going to talk about two hypotheses. Just a Haran hypothesis or the Jopian model on the origin of modern Western Africans. So those are the 5 topics that we have for you tonight. What I'm going to do is start the show officially. And, I didn't ask a question, but if you can hear my voice, please drop a 1. Let me know that I'm in fact being heard. To the one person who's out there right now. It seems like I'm coming through. So that's what we have in store tonight. What I'm going to do is officially start the show. And on the other side, I will drop Shoot the Breeze topic number 1, as well as welcome in any and all of my panelists tonight. So please stay tuned.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now, your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Koku. Just want to remind you guys before we get the show rolling that this show is part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio. There are other shows on the network you are invited to tune into.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the Pro-Black Perspective, where Black problems are addressed with Black solutions.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the Revolutionary Matron on KWAZ Radio.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Yes, indeed. Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. This is the Saturday night Shoot the Breeze segment that we've been doing now for over 2 years now, I believe, or almost 2 years. So thank you all for coming through. Let me welcome in my boy, first panelist tonight, Buana. Buana, how are you this week?
I'm good, Koku. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. Can't complain, man. How's things?
Good, man. Just want to remind the brothers who of a certain age, just remember to get your yearly checkups if you can. Try not to drink too much Guinness, to raise the blood pressure. but I'm good, man. I'm good.
Good. Thanks for coming through. I see Trigger Happy 262 Plus is out there in the chat saying peace. Trigger, let your boy Cam Traverse know that we have 2 of his topics up tonight. He should know that, but just let him know. And he is invited to come through. Anyone who wants to join, just click the link pinned to the top of the chat, and you too can be a part of the panel. Without further ado, let me grab Shoot the Breeze topic number 1 tonight. So Shoot the Breeze topic number 1 is a continuation of a conversation we had in the last portion of last week's episode. Shoot the Breeze topic number 1 says, a follow-up to Shoot the Breeze 124, topic number 5. How do we factor in Garvey's advice compared to Dick Gregory's? This came with a link. We'll watch it. Hold on. Yeah, this came with a link. I think it's taking us to Twitter. Yep. So it takes us to a tweet by Onitase from the Pro-Black Perspective. He says, there was a great conversation on hashtag Shoot the Breeze on personal appearance and public reputation. I'd like to see them discuss this passage by Marcus Garvey. So he gives folks a conversation from last week. He also gives the link to the ebook. I'll drop this in the chat as well. He goes on to say, I agree with Buana. Like Garvey says, dress well. So this takes us to an image. Let me see if I could even try to read this thing. It doesn't look like I can. Hold on. Let's see. Let me keep it here. He says, the man with a good appearance. So this is from the book Message to the People, or the, what's it called? The course on, I forget the name now. But this is a message to the people from Garvey. He says, the man with a good appearance walks down the street with pride, courage, self-confidence, and self-respect. The man with a dirty shirt or dirty underwear and poorly kept clothes is self-consciously afraid of himself and is therefore afraid of company. Hence, he is without confidence in himself. A dirty person on the street is bound to be affected by the heat. The heat betrays his dirt to the passenger by, and everybody looks around to see who it is. And as you are spotted, you become marked, and the odor you throw off as a result of the heat may become your social undoing in the community. So always be clean in appearance and in body. It costs very little, because even with one suit, you may keep it so clean as to always be presentable to the public. It is better for the public to say, quote, that man has been wearing that suit for a year, but it has always been well kept, than for the public to say, quote, that man changes his clothes, but he's always dirty. Never go on a platform with patch clothes, because somebody will see the patch and surely come to the conclusion that you are patched up all around. When you go before the public, remember that they are looking at you scrutinizingly from head to foot, back and front. They're going right through you, searching for something that reveals your true character. Disappoint them always by giving them the best you have in character, which is outwardly represented by your clean-cut appearance. I looked at a man. He was a beggar. His shoes were broken in many places and very dirty. His clothes were ragged and torn in many places. His collar was swarthy, black, and revealed dirt everywhere. His fingernails were black and dirty. His teeth were unkempt. His breath was foul. His shirt was black with dirt. He asked me for help. I gave him a penny and walked away because I thought it was enough because he could not appreciate the use of more. I saw another beggar whose clothes were poor but clean. His pants revealed poverty, but they were also clean. I gave him a sovereign because I thought he could appreciate the use of it. There is a moral. People will judge you by your appearance, whether you are rich or poor, and they will deal with you accordingly. Never make a custom to carry distress on your face or in your eyes. Never carry yourself as to suggest despondency and overburdening sorrow. People will learn to shun you. Keep smiling. Keep being pleasant all the time. And if you are dying, right, keep being pleasant all the time, even if you're dying. Sorry. It is better to be a pleasant corpse than a hideous, ugly-looking one. Show distress only when you may win help from those you approach, but be sure that you have struck a right estimate of your sympathizers. To show sorrow to those not interested is to drive them away from you. Never show it to those who are not interested. When you are keeping an appointment, always appear at your best to justify the particular mission. For instance, if you are going to do big business, appear in a way to suggest that you can maintain and live up to big business. If you're going to seek a job by an appointment, modify your dress so as to not outdress your prospective employer. If you're going begging for yourself, don't go flashingly dressed or overdressed, but dress in keeping with the kind of impression you would like to make upon your benefactor. This is purely a question of judgment. If you are going begging for a cause like the UNIA, you must not go as a revealed personal beggar. You would cause the person to say to himself, why should I give him money for a cause when he looks like someone who begs for himself and cannot be trusted with such philanthropic responsibility for others? Never go asking help for a cause, caring not how lofty it is, looking hungry, distressed, and broken-hearted yourself. Nobody will believe your story. You are likely to be jailed until you can prove your sincerity. I'll be honest. What I hear here is a lot of kind of that Caribbean kind of outlook too. Yeah, it's definitely that Caribbean kind of outlook, which is interesting. Some might say that Gavi is being a product of that colonial system, that British colonial system in Jamaica. Who knows? But I do believe that how you carry yourself says something about who you are. So I'll listen to what Buana has to say. Buana, it seems, only was agreeing with you from last week. So what say you to what Gavi had to say from the course of African philosophy?
Oni is that's my little Caribbean brother. I call him Kingston. You know, a little genius, physicist, and he keeps us older fellas on our toes in terms of the details that we talk on, because he'll research you. He'll research you, and he'll make sure the things that you're saying is exact and precise. You know, and if you found to be wanting, or if you find that the information that he has on in terms of the things that we discussed to be spurious, he'll call you out. So he keeps us on our toes as older guys who does readings on certain things. I would suggest that every Pan African should do a reading every year on the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey. Should do the reading on that. And as you suggested earlier, all of us we are measured by our experiences. I'm a Caribbean man. Of course, I can have a Caribbean perspective. You're a Caribbean man. Of course, you're gonna have a Caribbean perspective on things. But it's not to dismiss it so easily because some of the things we would have learned in the Caribbean is a universal observations. Many of the things that Marcus Garvey discussed, even though he was from St. Anne's Bay, Jamaica, some of the things that he talked about had universal application. Why do you think that he was able to create such a mass movement being being from such a small country? Because many of the principles that he would have talked about or learned in St. Anne's Bay, Jamaica, would have been universal. It was translatable. It was translatable. And I understand that we would like to discount the so-called immigrant experience, but this was a man of the world. This was a man who traveled throughout the length and breadth of South America. He traveled through England. He traveled through many different territories. So his knowledge would have been expansive. It's just that he would have put that Caribbean experience and applied that to the other experiences that he would have encountered throughout around the world. Dress and attire does matter. It does. I understand the argument last week was as such where we was trying to really play coy in believing that dress doesn't matter. How you present yourself to the world does not matter. I don't believe that argument. What the brother was forwarding to me, as if like he could have just you could just walk in professional places or professional environments, and people would solely look on you on the basis of what you have inside your head. It does not work that way. The world is extremely superficial. You have to prove yourself to be of some worth first. And one of the first things people look at is basically what they see on a physical level. This is what you're going to massage your way through the door. And after you would have acquired, or after you would have proven yourself to a certain degree, then you could have a little bit of laxness in how you operate. You know what I mean? And that's translatable. I don't care where you go. I like to iron my clothes. I like to wear belts. I like to present myself to the way to the world in a certain way. We live in a world right now in a North American society where they have this whole so-called idea of free culture where you could dress how you want to dress. Is everything is so liberalized and it doesn't matter anymore. That is for a particular group of people in a particular circumstance, and I don't think that that's a universal experience for everyone. When you get outside of that box, you'll recognize and realize that the world does not operate that way. And unfortunately, until you have the chains or where you are short calling or dictating how things should be done, then you have to operate in a way that in how the world operates until you are able to be a short caller on that level. Until you're on that level. And many of us are not on that level yet. So I think that the aspiration is for us to get on that level and then be able to dictate. Don't follow the rappers. That's an illusion. That's fantasy. Don't follow the rap. That pants down, sagging and stuff like that. That's an illusion. That's an illusion. Most serious people will never take you seriously unless you're in entertainment. If you are doing serious matters, or as Marcus Garvey would say, a man of big affairs, you're gonna address it in a certain way until you are able to be a short caller. And then you could be more lax, I guess, in your attire. But why would you want to be? Brush it. Hygiene is important in any sphere or of business or humanity. Hygiene is a very important thing. How you present yourself to the world is a very important thing. It's a very important thing. But if you want to be a disheveled human being, many people are not going to take you seriously. That's just the way of the world. But I will stop there. I will start there just to be brief.
But Juana, where does it matter if the dress code is fundamentally not your dress code or your people's dress code? Does it matter that to be well dressed is to say to be dressed in a European fashion? Does that make a difference to you?
No, there is a difference because okay, so Japanese man has his own customs. He has his own way of dress and mode of dress. So does a Nigerian man. So does a man from other cultures and things of that nature. If they operate in a Western society, they're gonna they're gonna operate in a certain way. Unfortunately, this is the situation that we currently reside in. I understand that we want to exert our power and we want to exert our own culture and things like that. But I'm saying that if you are operating within a Western sphere and if you want to do good business, I don't know. There must be a balance. There must be a balance. And I understand what the brother's saying. Well, I want to wear my African, but even if I'm wearing my African clothing, I'm gonna wear clean African clothing. I'm gonna present myself in the best way in terms of wearing African clothing or African garb, even if I'm in the Western world. But this whole notion of this liberal, if I'm wearing African clothes, am I gonna wear these clothes beneath my? Am I gonna let these things hang off my underpants? You know what I mean? Am I gonna walk around with mash up African clothing? You're not gonna do these kinds of things, and these people are trying to sell you how you appear does not matter. Even a Japanese or Muslim person, when they express their own culture in terms of, they can do it in the best way and the best form of it. So the Western world tries to sell you, well, I could wear a pants, but I could wear the pants beneath my belt and expose myself to the world. Come on, Coco. Why would you do that? You know, what I mean? Marcus Garvey say, always think of yourself as the perfect individual, as a perfect specimen. That's not exemplifying perfection. It's not exemplifying perfection. Why would I wear a hat backwards? Am I going backwards? Am I going the backwards? No, man. Represent yourself in the best mode and fashion. You know, regardless of what you're wear it to the best capability that you could possibly wear it in, because you are representing yourself first and foremost, and everything comes after that. I don't understand the reason why you would want to wear clothing which you're exposing your undergarments to the world. Who does that? Who does that? Only a backwards people or contrarian people. In my from my perspective, my opinion, you
In the chat, Trigabi262 Plus says, yeah, dressing well is important. It's connected to aesthetic, manhood, and a sense respectability. So that's what I was wondering. Are we playing respectability politics when we talk about this mode and style of dress? Because when you read Garvey, if you read more from this message to the people, there is a strong sense of respectability politics in his writing, if I'm to be honest.
Coco, explain respectability politics to me. Explain it. Educate me a little bit.
Well, the respectability politics is, like, for example, you'll hear Garvey say, or guys like Garvey say things along the lines of, if you want to be respected on the world stage, you must do X, Y, and Z, right? But is it about that respectability? So, in other words, if we carry ourselves with some respect, which is what I hear a lot of times when these conversations come up, if we carry ourselves with some respect, then we will be treated with respect. So, a George Floyd, for example, wouldn't be choked out and died on the street under a cop's knee if only black folks would pull up their pants and button up their shirts and speak with a certain, whatever.
Oh, I understand. No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is I am dressing. The brothers used to call themselves king and big names, like how Brother Bakari say the black woman is called. I am dressing as a representative of how I feel personally inside. You know what I mean? It's like the queen will never have to call a queen will never have to pronounce, hey, look at me, I am the queen. Everything about herself will exemplify that. You know what I mean? Her dress, her attire, her disposition, all these things will speak to her. So I'm not necessarily I'm just doing it because this is who I am. It's not that I'm trying to prove myself to the world. It's just this is what kings do. This is what a man who has some degree of self-respect. This is how he dressed for himself. I'm not I understand where you're going with it, but I'm not necessarily doing it because I'm trying to prove myself to the rest of the world. This is how I'm feeling internally, and this is what I represent. This is what I'm pushing out or projecting to the rest of the world. It's an internal thing, and it's just projected externally. I mean, it's not something that I'm trying to really prove or say, well, if I do this like this, no one is gonna hang me or abuse me or mistreat me. No, I'm not thinking on that level at all.
Yeah, because that's something that kind of comes up again when these conversations are happening. I said it. I don't remember if it was last week or the week before, but in fact, I think it was last week. I said, a lot of times these conversations happen in kind of reference to white folks, like it looks bad in front of them, or this, that, and the other, or whatever. But I think we should do things that are just, we should cut things out that are, that we generally find distasteful, to ourselves. I think we should dress for and things of that nature for our own selves, for our own self-esteem, and to build up our own selves. I think that's how we should do it. And if we did it that way, I think we would start to buck these notions of, wearing garb, wearing dress that's more in line with who we are as a people.
Yeah, because it goes back to culture. When you was in high school, for instance, and I'm gonna give you an example. When I was in high school, we used to have a culture wearing clocks. I don't know if y'all used to wear clocks. We used to wear clocks, and every night we cleaning and polishing our clocks because we want to have the freshest clocks. The freshest clock. We'll buy the Lee jeans, and then we'll go press these jeans. We'll iron these jeans us. I'm not thinking about no white dude. I'm not thinking about no white dude. I'm thinking about presenting myself as the freshest, nicest, crispiest looking guy on the street. So it's like, where does the white guy come in? I don't understand that. I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, it comes up now again. In terms of Garvey and his writings, I like I said, I do find there's a lot of that respectability type stuff in some of the things that he says. Trigger Happy 262 says the way he understands respectability politics is the Western confines of respectability and how that clashes with Africa. Now, Garvey's respectability is simply strategic, but in other sense, it clashes. One example of Western respectability, dreads, twists, and African hair or hairstyles is seen as unrespectable and unruly and don't fit a Western paradigm. He says, by the way, I don't mean that Garvey's respectability clashes, but that Western respectability in other contexts clashes as the example I gave, just to be clear. Our boy KW Don 7 is out there. He says business owners who wore suits were lynched in the early 20th century. Urugu doesn't give two shits about our appearance. The respectability is for ourselves, not Urugu. Yeah, I like how KW Don just came in and rest that comment down there. I absolutely agree. We should be able to discuss the things that we find distasteful amongst ourselves, and we should then be able to culturally edit that out and stop that kind of behavior. For example, pants sagging. You know, like, I don't give a shit about how it looks to white folks. I care about how it looks to me. You know, and how it looks to a lion's share of our folks. You know, Juan, you want to add any last words to this prompt here?
No, I think the brothers was clear. I think that KW Don was right. He said it's about self. It's about how you feel inside yourself, how you represent yourself, how you in terms of presenting yourself to the world. These are important issues, I guess, because I think that we should pay due care, notice, and attention in the way we represent ourselves to the world, not necessarily how someone else feels about us. Because as KW Don saying was saying, they if the people were well dressed and they were still hanging them on trees, they didn't give a damn about how they felt, about how the greater society felt about the Negroes who they was hanging. They didn't get, but the Negroes cared enough and they didn't give a damn about the greater society. And even if they thought that they was niggas, the black folks themselves was still dressing in a way that would represent themselves with a degree of respect. And it's like internally they felt always like, I should dress great and I should dress nice. I should put on a suit and tie because this is how I feel. They didn't give a shit either. So it even though they was hanged, the black folks in the South themselves had a degree of self-respect. You know what I mean? Had a degree of within my community. I like the fact that I'm wearing a suit. I do these things for myself. I don't give a damn about what the white man saying. He's gonna hang me anyway. Why would I want to become a self-fulfilling prophecy? So if he thinks I'm shit and I'm dressing like shit, I mean, does it even matter anymore? So the black man said to himself back in the day, well, he thinks I'm shit, but I don't give a shit because I'ma still dress in a suit and tie. I'ma still represent myself to the world in the best way possible. I don't give a shit about his opinion. He may do harmful things to me, but I don't give a shit about his opinion. And I'm gonna dress like this because this is how I feel about myself. And it says something about what our ancestors felt back in the day, regardless of what the so-called status quo was, or what the social status of the society was. They were still internally representing themselves in a very respectable way. So that's something that we could take from that experience.
Appreciate that, Buana. Let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 2 tonight. You guys, thanks for being here. Make sure you hit the like button. And hit the share button too. Make sure to share the episodes on your social media. Tag me when you share it too so I can see that you in fact shared it. Let's get the numbers up. Numbers are kind of down these last 2 weeks. Should be topic number 2. Quote, whenever Africans put their foreign religion before their race, they are automatically traitors. Agree or disagree? This came with a link that's taking us to YouTube. So we'll watch this video and then we'll discuss it.
Is that whenever Africans put their foreign religions before their race, they are automatically traitors. So you find Africans who are Muslims put Islam and put their Arab co-religionists before other Africans. And Africans who are Christians, they do the same thing. They put their Christianity before. No one was born Christian or Muslim. And what the Arabs and Europeans have done is that they have used their Christian and Islamic religions to culturally manipulate and control African people. So for example, Christian name, there's no such thing as a Christian name. It's European names, cultural imperialism using religion. Muslim name, there's no such thing as a Muslim name. The Arab names, Muta was talking about this earlier. So you have Africans getting rid of their African names and taking European names and Arab names under the guise of being Christian or Muslim. We must practice our African religions, be it voodoo or whatever, whereby we retain our cultural and mental identity as Africans. Because religion of the racist enemies is a mental tool of enslavement for our people. And finally, where that is concerned, Gaddafi is no leader for me as an African, as a Marcus Garvey man, a Pan-Africanist. Gaddafi, like Nasser, who was his idol, was a Pan-Arabist. And when the other Arabs refused for him to succeed as Nasser's successor, as the #1 Pan-Arabist, he turned to our African people to try to use our people. And his intention, just like the Europeans, their rivals, was to control and conquer Africa. A lot of
I went a little bit over with that clip, but you guys heard what Mutabaruka had to say about religion and race and so-called Christianized names, which is just European names, etc. Shout out to Sister Raw, by the way, who says greetings in the chat. Thanks for coming through, Sister Raw. Trigavi 262+ asks, is that Mutabaruka? Yeah, it's Mutabaruka speaking. Juana, what say you to what you just heard?
I don't think that was Muda. Kokut. I don't think that was Muda. I think that somebody speaking. But it wasn't Muda though. It wasn't Muda. But but shout out to Muda. Shout out to Muda.
Like Muda or I Can Fire, to be honest. But go ahead.
Yeah. Shout out to Muda Baruka, a great man out of Jamaica. But I don't think that was him just now. But I do believe that we as a community, when it comes in terms of spirit practicing our spirituality, we put down the whole idea of race. So race becomes a non-factor in terms of how we practice spirituality. And maybe this is a better argument for Trigger Happy and Razuli, because they're religious guys. But for me personally, I think that we put down that argument. But I don't say that they are automatically traitors, because that people need to really know context. They really need to have some understanding that what they are doing is traitorous, is treacherous in terms of they have to understand background and history. And many people don't practice religion based off of history and background. So getting into the name calling sometimes, I don't think that is beneficial for us. I think that with us, our issue is confusion, clarity, and understanding. And when it comes to religion, many of us suffer from confusion, understanding, explanation, all these kinds of things, because we have been taught religion in the Western world and in Africa as if we were children. So context have been taken out of the mind of Black folks in terms of religion. They don't understand context. So if you look at China, the Buddha, even though the Buddha was created in India, when that religion reached China, you see a fat Chinese facing, because the Chinese would not allow Asian or Asian version of Buddha to exist within their society, because the Chinese understood context. In Africa is so far out of context that they would permit a white savior inside their society. They wouldn't change the image of the Jesus figure or a savior figure into the people who actually exist or predominate that society. This is where we don't understand context, because we've been colonized to me to a worse degree than in Chinese or any other culture. And I think that this is our issue at times. And we need to be properly educated. Also, I would also say this for my brothers who are voodooists and people who practice African cultures like Erzuli them and Trigger Happy them, I understand that they only could do what they could do. But in my country, you see the 7 Day Adventists, the white guys who come to these countries to sell their religion, to expose the whole black world to their religion. I think the our African religionists need to get on their ball in propagating their faith and showing why our faith is superior to all other faiths. Just like the Christians have done it, just like the Muslims have done it. I think that uh, we need to start proselytizing our religions more out to the world. And I understand that the idea is money. Money, the African religions don't have the money necessary to send out people to proselytize to the world in terms of why our African religion and spiritualities is better. But I think that would give us, the black world, a whole lot of context, because right now black people in black countries see African religions as evil, demonic. The first thing that must be done is when we must disabuse our own people with that idea that our religions are demonic and evil. And then the second thing is to to propagate the idea of why our religions are better placed and more properly contextualized than the Christian faith, than the Muslim faith, than all these foreign religions. So we have a lot of work to do that has not been done yet. That we need to catch up. That there's a gap between Christianity, Muslims, and our actual faith. And I think our African religions, and I think that proselytization around the world, I think that we need to make up that deficit. So I would speak to the people like Erzuli and Trigger Happy them who are big on these kinds of things and talking about these things to close the gap. To close the gap. That's your work. Because you know where I started with it. But that's your work. That's not my work. But I'll stop there.
I appreciate that, Buana. Yeah, that piece made me have a couple of questions as well. I'll get to it in a second. Erzulism is out there in the chat. He said the Buddha is black, the black Asiatic man. Trigger 262 Plus says religions to me exist for the purposes of creating a geopolitical unit. We have to combat that. He says, I agree with that, Buana. Some argue people shouldn't proselytize African spiritual practices. We have to do that as a requirement if we want our people to practice it again. Lastly, Trigger says, also African spiritual practices should be more unified if they want to combat Abrahamic practices. Abrahamic practices are more unified than our own, and that's why we lose. Azulism says, close the gap for what? Azulism, you got to come and explain yourself a little bit there.
Because you in a competition, and you as a spiritualist and a voodooist practitioner, you are in a competition with the Christians and the Muslims, and you want the best for your people around the world, and that's the vehicle that you decide to use. So I think that that's the competition that you in. That's the race that you in. So if you want to win that race, you got to get in the race.
I like what Bakari says here. He says foreigners' religions don't automatically make them a traitor because that's all they know. I could actually agree with that. If it's true that that's all they know, but like I said last week, to be on the continent, to be at ground zero, even though these foreigners came with some strong juju, you had your own ancient juju amongst your people, I still think you should be looking into that. Like I said a couple weeks ago, I've come to the realization of I may not know what's going on in that spiritual realm, but if I'm going to talk anything about spiritual or spirit, I'm going to talk about what my ancestors talked about. I'm going to completely repeat what they talked about as far as that goes, because why would I talk about someone else's ancestors and their stories, right? There was something I intended to bring up here, and I can't think of it, but luckily we got Brother Bakari joining us. Bakari, how are you this week?
I'm good. What's going on? My bad. What's going on? What's going on, Buana chat?
What's going on, Uncle B? Let's get on.
I think it's something. I think it's some stuff that we forget when we talk about this, right? Is they didn't just give us a religion. Them motherfuckers, they came in and gave us an ass whooping, right? So I had a friend from Cameroon. His name was Bolain, and we used to hold this conversation all the time. And I said, so why why did people in like him, he would say he's Christian, but he would always talk about African gods. I said, why do y'all practice religion? He was like, the same reason we can speak their language. They came in with their military, we were divided, they fought together, and they kicked our ass. And he was like, so for the most part, people did things based on, because they were still like splintered, I guess, fractured, didn't come together. Did things out of survival as well, so they can live. So what I say, that makes them a traitor automatically. Not automatically, it doesn't make them a traitor, but it can make them a traitor when you begin to look down on your own stuff because of this. And on this part of the world, right, a lot of people, that's what I was talking about when I said don't automatically make them a traitor, because they don't know, is most of the black people in this part of the world. A lot of us just, a lot of black people just don't know. They really don't know. You find a lot of black, they're going to argue that Christianity is African. They're going to argue that the people in the Bible is black, because that's what they know. They really don't know they really don't know much about the African gods. I get them out.
Appreciate that, Bakari.
Yeah, and the shortfall, the shortfall is, like I say, people who know better, people who have been introduced even from a young age to African gods and African religions, who know better. They have a work to do. They have a work to do. You know, when Joseph Smith was creating this fantasy religion and gone to Utah and create that narrative in Utah where you have all those people practicing under that faith. And then you have, what's the other guy for Scientology? I forget his name now. L. Ron Hubbard created his fantasy. You know, you have all these people that believe, come up under one belief. I'm asking, where is the African spirituality, the African world? I guess Malachi Z. York them was trying to do it, and they went into their nonsense. I'm thinking the African practitioners and spiritualists, you know, in particular the same character right here who calling us a bunch of Negroes. These guys need to get on their grind, and they need to get on their work. I understand Erzuli is clearly defining the problem. I'm saying that if you could define the problem, then you have to understand the solution to the problem. So you must get on your work in terms of fixing what the shortfalls are and fixing the issues, since you seem to know better. If you know better, explain to people how to practice and do better. This is the work that must be done. This is the work that must be done for the African practitioners and spiritualists and things of that nature. You all understand and could clearly define the problems and all the shortfalls. Therefore, you all should know the solutions and the remedies to resolve the issues and problems. Get on your work. Get on your work. Don't criticize the people for being ignorant. Get on your work. But I'll stop there.
Hey, but I'm gonna piggyback off. You don't criticize people for not knowing, right? But for me, I come from somewhere. Even one of my friends that knew that, she always talk about the spiritual. I'm like, y'all know how I feel. Like, I gave the spirits up. I'm just being honest. But I wasn't raised knowing anything about any African gods. I wasn't raised having to go to church either. I was raised seeing black people come together and build stuff. That's literally what I saw people do. And I know I offended some people one time, and I asked, if we practice African spirituality, is that gonna make us take our community back? Right? If for me, if the God hasn't put inside of you to control your own existence, to control what you can, and take your community, if that's not already in you, it doesn't make a difference. This is just my opinion. It doesn't make a difference what spirit you're talking about, you praying to, you believing in, if it's not making you do anything. Because if the African spirituality is going to get us where we need to be, I need to see some people out there, when we talking about controlling the community and taking the community, buy black challenge, get foreigners out the community, don't shop with these people. I need to see some of them out there telling us how, that practicing African spirituality is what showed them the way. I'm not against anybody practicing whatever they choose to practice against African spirituality by no stretch of the imagination. I would say, if I did practice anything, I was, I don't really practice nothing, but I've studied voodoo. I know some African gods, but I just came to a point where I looked in the mirror and I'm like, it's me. So whatever God that is in me, and it got to be an African God because I'm an African man, make me want to take the community. I want to see other people who believe in all these Africans who want to say, let's do this spiritual stuff. Let's make sure these spirits making you control our existence, control the things that we can absolutely control our economics, control the businesses, let's put houses, let's purchase these houses in our communities together to give a low income housing, help get our homeless off the street. Let's go out here and feed. Let's build our own community centers. That's what I want to see. The people who want the spirits, that's what I want to see them come and jump on that bandwagon and do. Because like I said, I didn't have to go to church. My mama tried to make me. I never forget the argument. There wasn't an argument. My daddy said, I ain't got to go to no church if they don't want to go to church. Church ain't gonna do nothing when they get grown. When he get older, if he want to go to church, he go to church. But you don't force him to go to no. You don't force your kids to go to no church. I went to church on Easter because I knew they was gonna have a party after with cake and ice cream and food. That was my one time a year, because we were gonna have cake, ice cream, and food. So I was gonna be involved during Easter when I was little. I wasn't raised talking about. I knew people who they said knew voodoo and practiced the voodoo, but I wasn't raised knowing any of that either. But I was raised knowing we need to build a community, knowing what we need to control. I was raised being part of a community that we built. On that note, I yield the mic.
Give me 100 Brother Macari's. Give me 100 Kokus. And watch. And give me a couple of names too, because they scientific. And watch me work. Watch me work. This is what I'm trying. Well, you try to reproduce yourself. And for me personally, I don't give a damn about. At this point, I don't give a damn about the numbers. I give a damn about the mentality. And Hitler changed it. Hitler was one man who changed the entire Western world for right or for wrong. Just give me 100, give me 100 Brother Macaris and 100 Gokus and a couple Onis and watch me work. That's all I need to do. That's why I don't give a damn about the numbers. I'm trying to recreate these kinds of mentalities. But needless to say, I'll stop.
So, Bwana, let me ask you: what if you had 100 Kokus, 100 Onis, 100 me, and 100 who else, right? And let's say out of that 100, they didn't practice no spirituality, but they got boots on the ground. They come and they're able to galvanize people to say we're gonna have community-owned businesses. And you actually see them doing, oh, we got this washateria over here. This is our first step. We own this washateria. Now we got this corner store right here. Now we just bought a couple houses that we ourselves are fixing up. And what if they say they don't have no spirituality, no nothing. It's just them.
It
Would that
means
be a
nothing.
problem?
Me personally, Brother Bakari, me personally, it means nothing to me. Personally. However, I understand that some of our brothers and sisters in particular are led by these kinds of religious, spiritual matters and things of that nature. For our history, it's something, and well, fortunately or unfortunately, that's something that we have to respect. We are spiritual people, Brother Bakari. Me and you understand certain things on a certain level, but our people have very, what you say, immersed on. We have embraced this whole spirituality business. We are very big on that, and to ignore that is to your peril. So I respect these things. However, the underlying thing in all these things is the men and women who are capable to getting the job done. So I wouldn't dismiss the spiritual aspect ourselves, because I understand how big these ideas are with our people, and I would never reject them. However, as Marcus Garvey say, the women the women used to get the shit done, unfortunately, in his organization. They ain't theoretical. I want to get the stuff done. So as long as I know you have the Kokus of the world who want to actually do the grunt work, you have the Brother Bakari, them who want to do the grunt work. We could philosophize and we could theorize and all that good stuff. But the brothers, them who are willing to do the grunt work, and the sisters, the daily grunt work, let's get that job done. And everything else will take care of itself. We could dance and do all the spiritual rain dances and pouring libations and all that afterwards. But the brothers who are willing to do the actual work itself, give me them any day. Any day. I'll stop there, brothers.
I'm gonna say this, then then I'm gonna be done. I agree. Give me somebody who's gonna do the work. Now let me say what trigger happened. I understand the culture, so now let me explain why I say I got away. Because everybody I've ever, like I said, I've studied certain things on my own. I don't study like I used to, but I have studied certain things on my own. But you see a lot of people. I heard somebody mention Malachi York. I hope didn't nobody call him doctor, but I heard somebody mention him, who was a scamming pedophile, right? And he used everything he could to get control of people. And these crazy people still out here, right? Some of these people still out here talking about he levitates. He get out of prison whenever he want, what dimension you're living in and stuff like that. So my thing is, I met so many people hustling and scamming Black people, or heard them talking about that. That's also a big part of the reason that I'm like, oh man, these people out here just talking, because they'll talk and they probably, because I want to listen to somebody who knows something that I don't know, what I can learn. But then you sit and listen, and if you truly listening to people, you can tell when they're hustling. That's why I said the guy who did the damn museum in California, if anybody ever truly just listened to him, instead of getting excited, instead of being okay with some of the good stuff he said, listen to, you can tell they're hustling and scamming. And that's my problem with some of the. So if somebody knows something about the African spirituality and they can really teach me and can really show me some things, bam. I don't even mind learning, but it's so many hustlers and scammers that just kind of like push me away from a lot. So that's why I say the thing what I say about, it really don't matter to me, but those spirits should have you, your spirituality should have you wanting to build something for yourself, though. Now I'm done.
Yeah, this conversation actually ties in a little bit with the previous, the previous prompt about Garvey talking about dressing and dress codes. One of the things, and I also mentioned this on Shoot the Breeze a few weeks back, is you have to in the world that we live in, you gotta show and prove. And like a few of you said here tonight, I've said it before in the past. You got to show and prove. You have to show where your God or gods is where it's at. The reason why you get guys like Creflo Dollar and them are just a long line of grifters from the church. But a part of why that whole shtick works is because the adherents, the people who come to church, they want to see that their spiritual leader is prospering due to that faith. And so if you want people to really engage in this African spirituality, I agree with Buana. Those of you who are inclined, who have studied, who are still on that path, you guys should be doing the work. You guys should be out here, spreading the word, so to speak, on, African spiritual systems. And the practitioners, the heavy practitioners, the ones who people turn to when things are bad, you guys got to change up your game now. It's time to make this shit have some bite to it now. That's the only way we're going to get our people back. And if you want to say African spirituality equals the culture, and so to regain your African spirituality, and I get that, is to regain your culture. Well, I'm all for getting back your culture. But to get people to get to back to this shit, when you have this machine, this apparatus called the Abrahamic religion, right, with all their ability to punish and reward and eternity of suffering and all that kind of stuff, come on, you got to step this thing up now. This thing has to matter. It has to matter in every part of people's lives. Because say what you want, that's what the Abrahamic religions do. They got them folks, another grifter, Vicky Dillard, right? Selling holy oils and ointments and all this kind of shit. Like, they have these things that they do, right? But you got to tie it to something. You have to tie it to something heavy, Anyway, does anyone else want to add any last thoughts to this prompt here? All right. Let's go to Should Be topic number 3 tonight. This is where Camjaverse, if you're listening, this is where you come on through, brother. Should Be topic number 3 says, is African tribalism universal? Did modern West Africans kill off the ancient inhabitants of West Africa? Of course, this came with a link to YouTube. We'll watch it and then we'll discuss.
When it comes to discussions about West African identity and the origin of West African cultures, many ideologues promote the Saharan hypothesis that state that the principal ancestors of modern West Africans are the ancient Saharan inhabitants of West Africa that migrated south to coastal Refugia around 5,000 years ago, without any direct association or affiliation with the cultures of the Happy River Valley, particularly the pharaonic culture of ancient Kimi. There are many critical flaws of this hypothesis. Its proponents are engaged in what is called geographic determinism and isolationism through the application of the defunct Garden of Eden principle. In simpler terms, these ideologues believe that the totality of cultures and peoples in West Africa developed from ancient times without any major contributions from other parts of the continent. The one fatal flaw of their thinking is the fact that the Sahara housed cultures associated with every stage of human development: Homo erectus, archaic humans, and modern Homo sapiens sapiens. This doesn't mean that these cultures are directly connected to each other just because of geographic proximity. Massive gaps between the terminal Saharan cultures and the first contemporary states in West Africa exist. For example, there is almost a 1,000-year gap between the end of the Tichik culture and the onset of Ouagadougou. What these researchers miss is the fact that these ancient Saharan Hunter-forager populations were subsumed by agropastoralists who migrated into West Africa and developed territorial states from 4 to 1.5 thousand years ago. According to the analysis of Dr. Kevin McDonald, the microlithic cultures of these ancient West Africans, as well as their languages, have been lost. The Jaala people of northeast Nigeria, who speak a language isolate, are believed to be their direct descendants. In fact, many West Africans have terms for the ancient inhabitants of West Africa that their ancestors met when migrating from the east to their current location. On the flip side, there is a complete absence of a collective memory of the ancient Sahara by most modern West African groups. According to the Dogon, the Yeben and the Andumbu came in the current region first. The Telem came next around the 11th century, and then came the Dogon or Ka'ador around the 16th century in the Bandiagara area. The Mande and Dogon revere the proprietary rites of these ancients in their modern rituals. The Soninke call the 4th century immediate predecessors of the Ouagadougou cultures the Goloma, and refer to the collective groups related to the ancient Tichik culture as the Kokolo, for ancient ones. The Bozo and the Sakarwa fishermen are Mande groups considered the current oldest people in the Niger region, and they both speak about short red men who existed there before them. The Malinke call these people Woklo. The Susu of Guinea speak about diminutive populations called Doki. The Wolof call these ancient West Africans Gondro. And among other Malinke, they were called Komokudumi. Among the Masi, they are called Kinkirsi. Among the Songha, they are called Adakurma. Among the Gorma, they are called Apola. And among the Kurumba, they are called Atijia. The peoples of Liberia call them Jina. So as you can see, many West Africans have oral traditions and lexical terminology to define the ancient populations that existed in West Africa before them and that they replaced upon migrating into the region. So when we examine the Saharan hypothesis and the material cultural evidence that exists in the Sahara, from artifacts to petroglyphs, the direct links between the ancient Sahara and modern West Africa are restricted to faunal industries, or industries related to animals. Outside of simple propositions, the ancient Saharan cultures do not have much to offer in terms of explanations about the major sociocultural roots of modern Africa. Though the ancient Sahara was a preliminary ancestral step, the Happy River Valley complex is the immediate direct ancestral cradle of the cultures of contemporary Africa. We see this in the common Paleo-African cultural substratum and mode of production seen from classical Crimean Kush to contemporary Africa. The governing socio-political structure and sovereignty correspondences with respect to the body as a container of forces, seen by the Nasut of Kimi, the Mvun of the grass fields of West Cameroon, the Mogonaba of the Masi, the Kayamaga of Ouagadougou, and the Oheni among the Akan, establish general commonalities. We don't find any descriptive examples of kingship in the ancient Sahara. The systematic theology using Dr. Leah Luca's solar epistemology correspondences between the transcendent one, the creator, and the eternal verb, seen in the Happy River Valley divination systems, the Lakam systems of the Grassfields people of West Cameroon, the Odinani system of the Igbo, and the Ifa of the Yoruba, also establish commonalities between the pharaonic civilizations and contemporary West Africans, and more particularly the near-identical components between the Ama divination system of the Ka'ador or Dogon people of West Africa and the Ama divination system of Crimean Kush cannot be explained using ancient Saharan petroglyphs during the Bovidian pastoral period. So they're basically too close, the Dogon spiritual systems and the systems of ancient Crimean Kush, to just simply chalk it off to an ancient Saharan bond. It's a more recent direct bond that speaks to an east to west migration across the Sahel that the ancestors of the Dogon people traveled. The archaeology of the Neolithic Sahara does not match the founding narratives of the first West African states. The relatively peaceful Chepka period of the ancient Tichik culture, for example, does not correspond to the founding warfare narratives of the Ouagadougou Empire. Those scholars such as Hole have attempted to use geographic determinism and rainmaking as a mediator of stress in the power of the snake deity Bida. Rain for Dinka Sise and the founders of the Ouagadougou functions in tandem with the recurring natural phenomenon. Rainmaking alone is not enough to establish ethnogenesis, specifically for the Soninke, because this power and process exists in the same fashion among the Serer and the Fulani. We can't use this to say that they also descend from Tichik. And on the flip side, rainmaking alone does not explain the many other deities within the Soninke pantheon and their role in the founding of Ouagadougou. The toponymic network, where we see place names like Kimi, Kaukau, and Kara in Eastern Africa being exported to West Africa as Kumbi, Gao, and Gara, also show basic commonalities speaking to this migratory origin. Epigraphs in the grapheme analog seen between Mdudunter and the many West and Central African writing systems like Akauku of the Bamum, Nsibidi of the Ejagam and Igbo people, as well as other cross-river peoples, speaks to a direct relationship. And this is important due to Dr. Musa Lamb's architectonic analysis of the spatio-temporal evolution of agricultural and aquatic toolkits from the Happy River Valley prototypes that developed into forms that we now see in West and Central Africa. And this evolution, uncovered by Dr. Musa Lamb, reaches a delicacy that excludes the possibility of parallelism. The Murph farming tool developed from a plant fiber-braced timber prototype in ancient Kimi and Kush to a rivet-fastened metallic tool in Senegambia. The Kanjandu and Ilir garden hose were used for saturated soils. The weaved wicker baskets of the Happy River Valley evolved into timber bowls defined by grip handles in Senegambia. The harpoon instruments of ancient Kimi developed into nylon coinoidal tools in Senegambia that firmly connect the harpoon to the shaft. Lost wax casting systems developed from Happy River Valley prototypes to inter-African innovations from Ghana to Cameroon, where crucible attachments were used to control the gas pressure and metallurgical flow during the casting process. The Ngulu sword of Congo evolved from the Kopes sword in ancient Kimi, developing a non-cutting back edge with semicircular concavity. The handle is wrapped in wires and contains 3 timber spheres. The Heka scepter of ancient Kimi evolved into the Hogan scepter of Mali, with an inflected hook, a midpoint disc handle, and a sharpened endpoint. A variation of this design is the Hogan Kabyline scepter. The KWAZ scepter prototype of ancient Kimi developed into a uniquely fabricated, freshly trimmed beam placed in fire to augment its elasticity and treated with oil to augment its material resistance and aesthetic qualities. The Happy River Valley headrest evolved into anthropomorphic models throughout Africa while retaining the same composition, base, and upright hanger. Urban societies and the structural tectonics of building systems of modern Africa find many roots in the first dynasty of ancient Kimi. Because the Green Sahara existed prior to the urbanization period, the roots of contemporary African infrastructure cannot be found there. Through an extensive comparative archaeological and historical analysis, it is clear that one must place both the Sahara and the Happy in its proper context. Though the Green Sahara, with its Roundhead, Kiffian, and Tenarian cultures, does offer valuable understanding in terms of the foundational, aqualithic, and pastoral ancestry of Kimi and Kush, it cannot fully articulate the full origins and evolutionary roots of contemporary Africa. The Pharaonic civilization, however, is where we find a mass compendium of evidence that proves that it is the immediate cultural cradle of the majority of Africa's modern cultures.
Yes, indeed. That's Cam Diverse. Cam Diverse must be a PhD student doing a dissertation on this topic. He really is dedicated to the topic, but I get it. I get the idea. Yes, sir.
This is I don't have no beef with Cam Diverse, but this is academic gobbledygook. This is academic gobbledygook. You know, I am begging brothers like Cam G Verse and people of his ilk. The fact that Walter Rodney wrote a book called Groundings with My Brothers, where he was able to show the brothers in Jamaica, the Rastafarian brothers in Jamaica, get out of the university and show on a practical level his philosophical and theoretical understandings about all the things he learned in academia, bring it down on a practical academic level. Not applicable level to the street brothers in Jamaica. This brother is he's an intellectual. He's a African-minded intellectual. I have no problem with that. But how many people are you gonna reach in terms of the things that you learn in academia? in trying to relate these things to your people, and empower your people, and empower your people. Your people are not at this level. Are not at this level. How many people really are you going to reach to empower your people at this level? Very few. Very few. Many of your people need good knowledge and understanding about simple things about the world, let alone the complexities of the things that you're talking about. And I'm saying that you need to study what Walter Rodney did and the things of what they did in trying to empower the people throughout the Caribbean. This is not for me personally. I don't. Who are you trying to appeal to with this knowledge and information? Who are you trying to appeal to, brothers? You know what I mean? You have real brothers out here who have real issues and real problems. Is this going to be empowering to them? You're speaking way above their heads. Way above their heads. I mean, it's good to have knowledge and information. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. You smart and intelligent. You can make nice videos, but how is this empowering to the masses of Black people who I don't know if you're trying to reach them or not. You know what I mean? You need to break things down to a level of where people could understand these things, apply these things in their daily lives, and empower the things that you're trying to teach people. And I think that this is not me personally, I think that this is not an effective way of going about it. You know what I mean? 100 people maybe could follow along exactly with the things that you're saying. This is the problem I have with the academicians. Academicians stay in the ivory towers. They stay in the ivory towers, and they never could reach. This is and because y'all are creating a void, because of what you telling to people are not relatable. The Jay-Z's and the Rick Rosses, the things that they saying what's happening in the streets here and right now is applicable to them. So they digest that material as opposed to this good information that you giving to them, because this is not relatable. You have to speak even in a language that's relatable to the people. And this is far removed, far removed. And if you can't break these things down in applicable elementary level, your education is in vain. You're only teaching to the people who could follow along with this kind of information. And it's very few, very few. So what's the point of your information? What's the point of your intellect? If it's not empowering to your community. I really don't see the connection. I really don't. And I am begging brothers like you to be able to make these things translatable, because you are speaking Spanish right now. So it's annoying to me. It's annoying now. I don't mean to be speaking. I talking kind of loud, with the greatest respect to Cam G Verse and brothers like him. Try your best to try to make these things relatable and elementary, because your brothers them are not on that level yet. You must try to improve their circumstance and speak to them on a level where you could raise the consciousness of these brothers them on the street, because they ain't thinking on this level yet. And you have to work in stages. So I think that do that work first before you get to this point, because this is not empowering at all. But I'll leave it there, brother.
Thanks for that, Buana. I will echo one thing Buana's saying, which is, with videos like this, I would say tie it back, during the duration of the video, tie it back to what it is you really want the people to get. And I think what's wanted here is that, we are West African derived, but we aren't the original West African people. We are from elsewhere. And there's proof, there's clues, right? The way we farm, the tools we use, we see it in Kemet, we see it across the continent. So, just remind people why this is happening, because you're making the point that all of it is you. All of Africa is yours. We had all of it, starting in Egypt and spreading out. But without further ado, let's welcome in the brother from the video. Cam Javerse, como está?
What's good? What's good? What's happening? I can't really see how many people are on the panel. I think I heard Juana, give his take, and he's actually commented on my videos a few times, giving me this advice. And it's kind of interesting because, I've actually heard people give the opposite advice in the sense of saying that I don't have any sources for my claims. So like that's kind of why like my initial intention behind the platform was to be able to provide scholastic rigor with respect to African centered knowledge and information, because a lot of people tend to have the idea that the Afrocentrist is not rigorous and is not scientific and is more emotional and ideological as opposed to methodological. So that's kind of the reason why. And I could say that, even great erudite scholars like Cheikh Diop and Theophilo Benga, the vast majority of the African world was not really able to interact or engage with their scholarship because it was at a very high doctorate level, even postdoctoral level. But that wasn't necessarily their role. Their role was to have that initial fight within the academy, and then other people who are educators on more of a basic level or primal level, kindergarten, K through 12 in America. And I know you do primary, secondary, and terminal in Europe. Those scholars were able to perform the translations necessary for the students that they were speaking to. And I would like to also say that, this is not my only platform. And I do have a lot of other interactions that I do with much younger kids, kids more so from K to like fifth grade or sixth grade. And, I definitely have my way of articulating these things to them. And a lot of people online don't necessarily see that content, even though I'm beginning to produce more of it, for this YouTube platform. But I think you would be, heavily mistaken if you thought that this way of communication or this way of interacting was the only way, and I didn't have other aspects of myself even outside of the internet. So, I definitely understand where Buana is coming from, and I definitely understand the point of, most brothers and sisters are not necessarily college graduates. They haven't taken anthropology, linguistics, or history, so it could be difficult to follow along, right? But at the same token, a lot of this stuff is real in the sense that you have Doctor or not Denzel Washington being casted to play Hannibal from Carthage, or the whole Cleopatra controversy, or even Gods of Egypt movie controversy, where black people, specifically African Americans, but more so Africans across the Afrospora, the continent and the diaspora, are being castigated, demonized for even trying to connect with the pharaonic civilization. But the importance of that, and the thesis in the video, was to describe like the classical evolution of African civilizations, and even have a stance against tribalism, because that was Sheikh Anta Diop and Theophilo Benga's main point in articulating the cultural unity of Black Africa, was to move against tribalism from their analysis, which came from the partitioning of the African continent by European imperialists, to show the different historical unities of African populations linguistically, archaeologically, culturally, theologically, and with our spirituality. That's the reason that they did that. And this specific video was to speak to the idea of West African origins and the idea of where West Africans come from, and if tribalism is universal. Because on one hand, you could say that maybe it is if you look at what happened to the ancient hunter-gatherers who used quartz microlithic technologies in West Africa prior to 4,000 years ago. They were eventually wiped out, and some people say assimilated, by modern West Africans. And on the flip side, if you were to look at the prototypes of West African material cultures, their farming tools, their building tools, some of the aqualithic tools that they used in fishing, you don't really find any of these prototypes in the majority of the Saharan, excavations, and you definitely don't find them in ancient, West Africa, which is why Sheikh Anta Diop said he spoke against suspending the history of Africa in air, because without connecting it to the pharaonic civilization, you don't really have much. You can't really prove the evolution of where these material cultures came from. So all of that is sort of wrapped into one with the information of the video. And, I definitely, again, I appreciate the feedback, both negative or positive, because it gives me something to think about in terms of refining the content for the future.
Kamji, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I just feel like you are having an academic fight in a
Hmm.
public forum. The brothers them are not on that level, brother. I understand that you have the intellect to be able to break down these things in an elementary level. I'm saying to myself, you understand how YouTube works. You've been on YouTube for a while. You understand the level of where the regular brothers on the internet are at. But I feel like,
Hmm.
and it's not to say that you shouldn't put out this material. I'm just saying that it's a very high-minded intellectual fight that you are waging with most of the. I don't know if you trying to. You are you trying to direct this towards the public black community or the academia in terms of white academia and scholarship in terms of that level? Who are you trying to target in terms of the content? So
Well,
that's what
well,
I
I
want
would
to
say,
ask.
I mean, no, that's a very good question, and I get asked that question a lot, even by my friends and family who are aware of this. And I would say that, my outlook in making this content is looking at the future, 20, 30 years from now. Hopefully the future generations still have access to this and like an internet vault. And I want them to say that even though people today didn't necessarily believe in Black intellect, that Black people can be just as intellectual as white people, as Asians, wherever or whatever. Because in that sense, the academic fight, you can't discount the academic fight because that is definitely part of any type of development of knowledge, right? You always had a register of conflict within this professional realm, right? But like I said, this isn't the only thing that I do. Like if you were to see me on a Saturday at Saturday school tutoring some kids, you would see a different side of me, right? And that side wouldn't necessarily be applicable here because when you're talking to a fourth grader, it doesn't necessarily work that way, right? So, but to just to answer your question again, when I look at the people who they have conversations about, Christianity, they may have conversations about, philosophy, and people of other communities, they're able to, have a back and forth without necessarily getting into, the chitlin circuit that you may see in Black spaces. I want Black people to be able to have those same high level conversations, right? And be able to reflect a higher sense of being and be civilized and be able to engage in that fashion.
That's a fair statement. That's a fair statement. That's a fair analysis. But what I would say is this, and I think that you're intelligent enough to understand that what YouTube is all about and the masses, and the appeal of the masses. And I think that your intellect not only could be used in terms of the battle that you are waging in terms of academia, but on an elementary level where many of us where we find ourselves, the brothers, regular brothers, where we find ourselves. I think that you are have the sophistication to be able to speak to people on a very elementary level and bring them up to the sophistication of which you speak of. And I understand you are talking in terms of the future. Maybe 30 years from now, people will be on a level to be able to understand and clearly go through in terms of the different kinds of analysis that you go through. But I'm saying that you have to reach your brothers away. Don't forget us. Don't forget us. Yeah, don't forget us.
Yeah.
Don't forget us who
And I'd
are
also
non.
say,
Guys,
no, go ahead.
yeah, don't forget us who may not necessarily be on that level yet to attempt to raise the level of consciousness of brothers and sisters like us from one stage to the next stage to the next stage to reach to that level to where we can have these kinds of Jordan Peterson discourses. Yeah, I just don't forget about us as well, because I think that this is you're recruiting soldiers whether you realize it or not, because we'll have more of your back in terms of academia when you raise the consciousness on a regular brother and sister on the street level. But if you just appealing to academia is few and far between. You know that. You know that. But when, like you say, when you grounding with your brothers, when you grounding your brothers on a street level, you're recruiting more soldiers. And I just, maybe it's not a critique. It's just something that I would want you to consider in the future going forward. You understand what I'm saying or no?
Well, I feel what you're saying, and I think
Okay.
like what I'm glad about is the fact that there's not necessarily many disputes with the information presented in the video, which makes me see it as correct in this space in particular, right? So I'm glad about that, and I would also say that I do have a team of people that I work with. You know, there's some YouTubers. I don't know if you're familiar with Pan African James Designs, and you know I have other scholars that I work with who do present, generally speaking, more simplified content, right? So like there's a bite out there for everybody if you're looking for it. And I also, as I said before, like I'm actually gonna post a child related or children related video. It's gonna be the first one that I've ever posted on this platform. So I do actually have uh, videos that I'm going to direct towards children planned in the future. But at the same token, like this in this space, you know, I get a little bit more positive feedback in the sense you guys want to simplify it, but you don't necessarily disagree with the content. Other spaces that are more tribalist, like you're dealing with West African tribalists, you know, Zumalis, and just they will say that the information is not validated or the source, right? And that's for the rigor on the flip side. Because if somebody's saying I'm not rigorous enough, I have to dot my I's and cross my T's to make sure that everything's on point. And I know y'all understand that. So I got to fight the battle on both sides.
So we want the new John Henry Clarks. We want the new Dr. Benz. We just don't know how to follow you all. So it's like, okay, you know what I mean? It's okay. So, but you understand the Collins in which the John Henry Clarks and Ben Yosef used to talk, and they used to create stories because they understood the audience was as such where you have to break things down in a way that people who may not necessarily be an academic can follow along. We want to back the new John Henry Clarks of the world. We want to back the new Ben Yosef, Ben Buchanan's of the world. However, we won't be able to understand it in a way that we understand what we should back. Give us a reason why we should back you all. You know, talk to us in our language. You know what I mean? So that's the only thing I would say in making any kind of critique or criticism or suggestion in going forward. That's the only thing I would see. But I'll leave it there, brother.
In the chat, Trigger Happy 262 Plus says the academic fight is the intellectual wing of the Black Power movement in that sense. It's also a battlefield. Camji, without giving up personal information and whatnot, are you working on a book or a course or like the type of information you're putting out there? What's the general purpose or intention for your work?
You stated it a little bit earlier. Both and, to answer your question, I am in the process of, pursuing higher education. I still have to get some of the details worked out with my advisors, but I am in communication, active communication and active participation in getting work published and pursuing, the next level of education.
I figured that. Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. I like it. I hear what Buana's saying. For me, I don't poo-poo it too much. I think if you have to level up to understand what's being discussed, I think that's a good thing for the average person. You probably won't get the uninitiated, but those who have a little something under their belt in this type of space, you'll probably get them to pause for a minute at least and ponder what it is that you're saying. Cammy, before we move on, I'd like to ask you, what would you like the Black equals African person today, what would you like them to understand that they could use today about their origins, not just simply being of West African, beginnings, but from across the continent, and carrying on Africanisms and Kemetisms, etc., from from those days to the present, what would you like the average African listening to this show, what would you like them to get from that knowledge?
I would, going back to Diop's quote about sustaining I would want them to know that they should be confident in knowing that not only is the Pharaonic civilization a product of Black people in the Black world, but it represents the apex of African cultures, of traditional African cultures. And that classical apex is needed in terms of developing Africa in the modern world. Because in order to perform development, I actually work in structural analysis. You actually have to understand the evolutionary prototypes. You have to understand the root that came before the tree. And if we can understand those classical roots, then we could be more developed technologically, whether it's in the military, whether it's in infrastructure, whether it's in, marine biology, or whatever field that we come across. We could actually be able to engage within the modern 21st century African Renaissance if we understand the accuracy and the validity behind our classical evolutionary roots within the Pharaonic civilization. So understand that is our bastion, that is our hope, that is our climax, our apex, and we could rebuild that in the modern world if we remain confident in ourselves and our ability to do what we will.
I appreciate that, Cam Diverse. Buenas, any last words you want to add here?
No, I just want to say thank you, Cam Verse, for giving great information, and intellectual information, and intellectual vigor to YouTube. I don't want to come off being negative in any way, in terms of what your work is. Like I say, I give you my opinions, just an opinions, but I appreciate your work. I'm a great listener of the things that you I listen to the things that you provide in terms of intellectual information for the internet. But that's if I was to have any kind of criticisms, you know what they are moving forward. Like I say, for the future John Henry Clarks of the world and the future Ben Buchanans of the world, this is just my critique in terms of going forward. Just remember the brothers on the corner. Remember the brothers on the corner. Yeah, speaking our language and our parlance. But
Yeah.
but like I say, I respect your work and in terms of what you're trying to do. So I'll just leave it there.
I appreciate that.
Cam, do me a favor and stick around. We have another one of your topics coming up.
Yeah, sure.
Last of the night. In the meantime, let me just read what Trigger Happy 262 said. He said, "The academic fight is the intellectual wing of the Black Power movement. In that sense, it's also a battlefield." He says, "Joke, when he initially was getting into this scholarship, it wasn't necessarily about just our glory, but to find the common origins of African origins, to build a federated state too." He says, so in a sense, how can we build Pan-Africanism without finding our common origins? I actually like those comments there, Trigger Happy. In the meantime, let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 4. If you want to join the panel, just click the link. It's pinned to the top of the chat. Ladies, the invitation has been open and reoccurring. We need more of you up on the panel. And, some of you fellas in the chat, sometimes you can come up and lend your voice to the discussions, especially when we're shorthanded like we are tonight. Shoot the Breeze topic number 4 says, should this queen be applauded if she is destroying our community? Are Black men who defend this the problem? So this takes us to YouTube. Takes us to a video. We'll watch it and then we'll comment.
It's a small South suburb with big bills and leaders with expensive taste. Last night, we showed you how some residents and elected officials claim the local mayor retaliates against people who don't support her.
Well, tonight we look at a spending spree that's also causing questions and concern.
Super mayor, fake news. Another day, another episode of The Bold and Beautiful featuring the super city girl mayor of Dalton and Thornton supervisor Tiffany Hinyard, aka Teflon Tiff. She's out here lying about spending thousands of dollars on shrimp, crawfish, and crab legs, first-class flights, super ritzy hotels. She straight up lied and said that people didn't pay for it. But once again, just like with that Chevy Tahoe, you literally have to pull out receipts on this city girl mayor.
Total lease price, $149,146.20. Tell me if it's not facts, because your signature is all on it.
A lot coming up here, but first, take a second to make sure that you're subscribed to the channel and click the notification bell for all updates.
Here again, investigative reporter Ben Bradley.
40 minutes south of Chicago, you'll find Dalton, Illinois. The median income is $24,000 a year. And yet the mayor collects more than 10 times that amount from various elected positions. And as we found, a paycheck isn't the only perk. In South suburban Dalton, the economic challenges run deep.
We still have areas that need trees cut, streets paved, alleys paved, sidewalks fixed. It's a lot of that going on.
And a lot that's being spent, not on critical repairs, but on travel, meals, and more by many top village officials.
It's an issue. It's been an issue for some time.
We just look up and we're paying for stuff. And it just makes no sense. She's just doing what she wants to do.
None of them do the things that we do here. We the only ones making sure y'all streets get paid, find ways to fix what is broken.
She is Mayor Tiffany Henyard.
But then they running y'all, say y'all this look fictitious story.
Would you like to just do an interview with me?
Yeah, I got you.
Well, let's go. I mean,
Catch me outside. How about that?
Exactly. Let's go. Shout out to the WGN reporter. He was at the meeting in the village of Dalton, and she's looking at him because he's media, he's in the building, and have the nerve to say something about people making up fictitious stories. So he's like, come talk to me then and tell your side, since everybody's lying on you. Here's the thing. Nobody is lying on her. You have fresh lawsuits out right now. At least 2 of the women working for her that she's been harassing came out. And they're not the only ones accusing her of targeting people who don't agree with her. Not just other elected officials and employees, but even business owners in the area. She's been sabotaging local Black businesses and their owners if they speak against her, using the police, her security detail, to do it. And that's why when the feds swoop down on her head, I hope they get her simple forces too. She's doing all of this and have the nerve to say people are lying on her.
And then they running y'all, say y'all this look fictitious story.
would you like to just do an interview with me?
Yeah, I got you.
Well, let's go. I mean,
In addition to leading Dalton, she also serves as supervisor of Thornton Township. You make almost $300,000 between your 2 elected positions.
I do not. I don't know where you got that number from.
We got it from her own village and township records.
Wow, would you look at that? That's her W-2s from 2022. From Thornton and Dalton combined, it's over $287,000. That's $37,000 more than the $250,000 estimate I previously reported. These right here are the actual numbers directly from her W-2 statements. $287,212 in 2022. And this flamingo just sat up there and looked at the reporter with a straight face and lied. Just like she tried to lie about that $149,000 Chevy Tahoe.
That makes absolutely no sense. You're not making great finance. Excuse me? Please stay facts. But let me tell you, here it is, dated December 27th.
Oh. You make almost $300,000 between your 2 elected positions.
I do not. I don't know where you got that number from.
The citizens of Dalton and Thornton, please don't be fooled by this woman. She is a liar.
Super Mayor, hey, to be fake news. I don't know where you got that number from.
These are tax dollars.
So is the money being spent on village credit cards. WGN Investigates obtained copies of statements that reveal village officials have spent more than $24,000 at restaurants in just 1 year, including this Midlothian barbecue joint and a South Holland sub shop.
I've seen the same thing and more. You name it, they've done it.
Other questionable expenses include the streaming service Hulu, flights to Texas, Alabama, and Missouri, and hotel rooms in nearby suburbs, including Madison and Elk Grove Village, plus thousands of dollars spent at a hotel in downstate Pontiac.
My take is this. If they are going to something that's going to benefit the village, that's fine. But from my standpoint of view, these things don't benefit the village at all.
And then there are the trips to Las Vegas. Mayor Henyard and other top officials traveled to Sin City in May to attend a shopping center conference. It's unclear if it helped Dalton land any deals.
Don't have a clue. We're all in the dark. Not only are the residents in the dark, but the trustees are also in the dark as well.
A shopping center conference. All of these trips on Dalton Dollars and Thornton, all of this money. So let me get this straight. Not only did she spend $24,000 on food last year, on pork chops and barbecue, shout out to the former chief of staff who came before the people and spilled it all.
They do spend money like water, just being real. We ate good, the whole staff. Chicken, feeding seniors off of the Dalton Dollar, because you know what she said? It's campaigning for her and seniors' vote.
She confirmed the mayor was spending money like crazy. And Mayor answered this question. What are you going to Vegas for? What business are you handling for Thornton and Dalton in Vegas? The truth is, she came up with a phony reason to travel and had taxpayers pay for it. Spending all this money going to Alabama, Missouri, Texas, Vegas, all that money on those local hotels. What are you doing with all these hotel rooms? And again, if you want to go to Vegas, fine. Pay your own way. Yeah, use your money to do it. You collected almost $300,000 in 2022 and couldn't pay for your own Vegas trip in May 2023? And we still haven't really touched on that money that she funneled from the city to herself, donating to her own organization that's supposed to be helping women with breast cancer. She didn't help anybody but herself, but she's using breast cancer patients to get money.
I do not handle anything as relates to with credit cards. As you heard me speak today in my board meeting about, I do not handle that.
Some of those charges are for you, though.
No, sir. I do not handle anything as relates to with credit cards. As you heard me speak today in my board meeting about, I do not handle that.
Some of those charges are for you, though.
No, sir.
You didn't go to Las Vegas?
It was at this point she realized that she messed up.
I do not handle anything as relates to with credit cards. As you heard me speak today in my board meeting about, I do not handle that.
Some of those charges are for you, though.
No, sir.
You didn't go to Las Vegas? What is that?
No comment.
You don't know if you were in Las Vegas?
Of course I do.
Were you?
It's not paid by them.
Did you fly first class to Las Vegas?
Any other questions?
Actually, yes. The credit card records do shed some light on tax dollars spent at several restaurants near the Strip, including Cafe Hollywood and Hot and Juicy Crawfish.
All right. Any other questions?
So you're not going to answer how taxpayer dollars are being spent? That seems odd.
I just answered it. What do you mean? I just answered your questions.
You said you wouldn't answer about Las Vegas.
You asked me a question and I responded.
Now here's Teflon Tiff with his baby bot bimbo babble. Ma'am, you responded by saying you're not going to answer the question. And then she lied and said she went to Vegas, but it wasn't paid by them. When this woman charged first class flights, hotels, $300 seafood dinners.
It's not paid by them.
Why would you lie when they already have the receipts? You did not pay for your own $300 meals in Vegas. You charged it on the city credit cards. When just a second ago, you said you paid for it yourself. You know she went to Cafe Hollywood because she want to be a fake celebrity so bad. Ma'am, you did not pay for your own crab legs and crawfish. She had the village paying for it.
You don't know if you were in Las Vegas?
Of course I do.
Were you?
It's not paid by them. So any other questions you may have?
They may have signed up for a conference, but they never bring anything back. So we have no idea why they go to these trips.
Remember, we mentioned Henyard was also supervisor at Thornton Township. WGN Investigates obtained copies of that agency's credit card statements as well. They show township taxpayers also spent money on the Vegas trip on everything from steak dinners to hotels and $3,741 just on Henyard's round-trip flight.
Wait a damn minute.
So not only did she use Dalton's money for the trip, but for this same trip to Vegas, she made the taxpayers of Thornton, the township she represents, in her other position, she used those credit cards to pay for first-class flights over $3,700, hotels over $8,400, and even went to Ruth Chris. Spent almost $600 at Ruth Chris.
But I shouldn't have to sit up here and break all this down.
When trustees refused to pay a big block of bills this week, the mayor accused them of putting vital city services in jeopardy.
We need receipts to understand what's going on.
We couldn't help but notice the red hat perched in front of Mayor Henyard throughout the meeting. It's from the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company, which, by the way, was apparently a stop on the Vegas trip. $303 billed to Thornton Township taxpayers.
Man, this is outrageous.
We just feel lost, and we just want the powers that be to step in and say, hey, you know, something's got to give.
Is there anybody else? I just want to be clear. Anybody else after that? Is that it? That's it?
We sought specifics from Dalton and Thornton Township about these credit card charges, expenses, and how they benefited taxpayers, but received no clarity. Mayor Henyard invited us to come back to Dalton and the township to showcase upcoming turkey giveaways, senior programs, and plans for an ice rink. Proof, she says, that she lives up to her moniker, the People's Mayor. Ben Bradley, WGN Investigates.
Super Mayor! And then you look at the people after spending their money for all of that and say they didn't pay for it.
It's not paid by them.
She's the people's mayor, all right. And now she's planning to spend more money on more parties, fish fries, and turkey giveaways, all to fool the people of Dalton to make it seem like she's doing something for them when really she's only running up a check on their dime. This is crazy. Let's go ahead and get the conversation started below in the comments. Definitely make sure that you have your notifications turned on. You don't want to miss any of my updates. Special thank you to Felix. I appreciate you, Felix, for all of your support, as well as Thad, Roosevelt, Nick Taylor at MTAT, Judas Lyon, Ed.
Interesting video. One I was not familiar with. This is why I like Shoot the Breeze. Sometimes I come here and I learn about these little stories that I had no idea about. But this story, this highlights the thing that I talk about often, which is, hey, politicians and politician wannabes. We get that, you know, politics is a hustle. We get that y'all going into that 9 times out of 10 to benefit from the hustle, right? But we wouldn't mind that too much once, provided that you're actually doing something for your constituents. It's crazy to remember for me of being a kid and seeing these people who were diehard behind this one political party we have called the PLP, right? Diehards. But when you look at Engliston and parts of the Grove, the areas, ain't nothing changed in 20, 30 years. People coming out of high school unemployed, sitting down all day looking up and down the road. Like, do something. Do something tangible. At least fix the roads or something. Do something. You could charge this shit that you're doing. I'm telling you, most people wouldn't care once some of the things that they look forward to, the things that they look forward to for their families, once those things are good, most people will kind of just be good with it. But on top of not doing anything, you're doing this bullshit too? Come on, man. Come on, black people. At least do something for your folks. A little something. That's my rant. Let me hear what Buana has to say. Should this queen be applauded if she's destroying our community? A black man who defend this the problem. What say you, Buana?
I for me personally, I am thinking to myself, why isn't Brother Bakari a mayor in Atlanta right now? You know, because I used to think that there was a degree of difficulty in becoming a mayor in the United States of America. I'm like, this chick could become a mayor, I ready to go move in with Brother Bakari right now. Give me 1 year, he'll be a mayor where he is. He'll be a mayor, and at least Brother Bakari is a Gavian. So Brother Bakari have black people on his mind. You know, he gonna try to give contracts to black folks in the area where he living in. But I'm thinking to myself, man, I'm ready to move in with him tomorrow. If this is, he's showing me this chick is showing me it's possible. It's possible. Because Brother Bakari is grassroots. The only reason I wouldn't run, me personally, is because when they hear my accent, they can say, "Oh, okay, he's an immigrant," you know, so we can't vote for him. But Brother Bakari is a grassroots dude. He speaks with a Mississippi accent. Oh goodness, man, he'll make $300,000 a year tomorrow, and he'll be able to lace his community and the people who he love or respect with contracts and things of that nature. He's grassroots. I'm like, I need to make Brother Bakari a mayor in Atlanta, and at least at a section of Atlanta. I understand the whole political game in America in terms of what it is. You know, it's just smoke and mirrors. I understand that. It's not to be taken seriously. What I would say also too with people, brothers like Camji versus, this is who you dealing with, brother. You know what I mean? Well, you are in academia, you are intelligent, brother, but this is the kind of people who you are trying to, I don't know if you're trying to attract, but in terms of educate and teach, in terms of what you understand, education, all these other things going forward. So you have to approach these kinds of people at this level, at a very rudimentary level, to get them to a place to where understand where you would like them to be. You know, or if you can, throw yourself in the ring. Throw yourself in the ring, brother. You know, you don't have to do it on an academic level, but at least you're able to understand what's going on and how to move or where you would want to move. You know, this is the reason why I love the academicians, is because they are needed. They are needed to at least set the pace, at least set the pace for the masses of black folks and where they are. But if you don't want to go into the political realm, if you want to stay in the academic realm, I understand that. You know, leave it to me and brother, leave it to brothers like me and Brother Bakari. We try to do something else. But with this particular lady, she is just showing us that the field is open. Anyone could be elected to political office. So if monies, because when you talking about politics, if monies are going to be distributed in terms of contract given to do these kinds of things or other kinds of things within a particular area, I say use it to advantage. I would love to work with a brother like Brother Bakari, because he is grassroots. He is Gavi minded, and he use these people for that kind of measure and interest. He use these people. He speaks the language of these people. He would easily be electable, easily be elected to office, and then we use that to distribute contracts in our favor. Because it's all competition at the end of the day. It's all competition. It's all competition. But that's all this is really telling me. And that's all it's really telling me. It's possible. This is showing me that it's possible, that it can be done. And I like I say, I would work with a brother like Brother Bakari, who speaks the language of the masses, to get certain things done and get this chick out of office. Get people like this chick out of office and get our interests done within the community. But I'll just leave it there. I'll leave it there.
I appreciate that, Buana. You mentioned Cam Diverse. Cam Diverse is back. Cam Diverse, what say you? Should this queen be applauded if she is destroying our community? Are black men who defend this the problem?
I mean, when you're speaking about American politics, really it's difficult to distinguish between who's a crook and who's not a crook, especially if you look at things from an international perspective. So I don't really expect her as a representative of the state to act any differently because they all do, variations of this. It is definitely up to the people, the constituents, to be able to elect the leaders that they see fit. So if the people of that community were a victim of her actions, generally speaking, they're the ones who put her in office. So if they don't like her, they should take her out. Now, black men, I don't think in the current political climate that there would be a lot of black men who would defend her actions. If they do, to me, they're a little bit immature. But generally speaking, I don't think that there would be too many black men who would take her side, especially if you look. I mean, when I look at her hair alone, to me, she's already invalid. I don't really take what she has to say seriously because I don't really rock with women who wear the takoyaki. It's not my preference. So just the hair alone would turn me off. But in general, just her whole demeanor isn't anything different from the standard American politician.
I appreciate that, Kamji.
Kamji.
Let's welcome back.
Why wouldn't you? I'm sorry, Coco. Why wouldn't you use her though? Use her. Yeah, use her. I understand you understand that she may be far afield from your perspective, but you use people like her. You know what I mean? For your own personal interest. Don't worry about the hair, brother. You use her for your personal interest because intellectually you may be. Maybe this is wrong to say. Maybe you may be able to manipulate her, but you use it to your advantage because ultimately at the end of the day, the bigger picture is the interest of your people.
I mean, in that effect, I do agree with that. In that effect, like when you look at the Communist Party of China, the CCP, they certainly have agents and operatives all over the world who work for them. So in the capacity of an African nation to develop an intelligence apparatus, she would definitely be a candidate because it seems like she's willing to be sold to the highest bidder. So in that effect, yes. But I would say in a preliminary stage, just even harkening back to message to the people, that that more professional approach and a more moral approach, ethical approach, entering politics. Once we have the leverage to be able to construct something in the liking of an intelligence apparatus, yeah, certainly. Because at that point, it's whoever you have on your side to build leverage, you take. So yeah.
Let's welcome back in Brother Bakari. Bakari, how are you this week?
I'm good, man. I'm sorry about that, man. I have technical difficulties on this phone, man. I don't know, Google something, they got a bug they got to fix. But I heard y'all talking about, I don't even know what the lady said because my phone was messing up when I came back. I heard Bawana say I'll use her. I don't even know what you're talking about, but whatever it is, and I heard him say he wouldn't. But I use anything I can. Anything or anybody that we can to get ourselves in the position that we need to be. We have to learn to use them. I've been used, I'm saying but black people have been used forever. So if they put a Billy Ape up there that represent them, but we can still figure out a way to use them. If it's a white person that we can use, we use them. We have to start understanding the business of this ratchet country. And once I'm gonna be, I don't even know what she was talking about, but I just heard somebody say the word use, and I would use the hell out of her. And anything else that I can use, I'm gonna use it if it can benefit, if it can benefit us. Like I'm gonna give you an example. The mayor.
We was talking about using you. We want to use you because we don't see. Yes, because we don't see why that you can't be a mayor of Atlanta or at least wherever you are, because you have people like Kamji versus intellectuals like Kamji versus, or people, reasonable men like myself, who, if you need to have assistance or help or aid in that effort, we know that you're going to back us at the end of the day. You're a Gaviite, so you have the interests of black folks on your mind. Why not? You speak the language. You speak the language at the grassroots. why not use a person like Brother Bakari rather than this individual? I think the people will vote for Brother like Brother Bakari.
Yeah. So let me give you an example. Like this mayor here in this town I live in. This mayor, he ain't gonna speak no language or no garbage. Probably not even pro-black from what I know of him, right? But what he used here and helped black businesses get here, I was able to talk to the people before him. When they tried to get me to be on the city council, no, they wanted me to be quiet. And they started offering me money, no. But he used the plan that I gave. Not my whole plan, but some of my economic plan. When I was going around, if y'all know, y'all have seen it, Coco and Bawana. And if y'all look, and I said, and I was showing the black businesses in the little town that in the little community I live in outside of Atlanta. He was able to do that because some of the buildings is owned by the little city, and black businesses was able. You go in there, you got 3 years known rent, everything. He figured out a way you have discount on your utilities and everything until you build your business up. You know, that was one of the things that I would tell nations, because we need more black businesses. Hey, he don't talk to me like that, but he was on the city council when I was telling him that, and I can tell he took notes, at least some. He didn't use everything that I said, because everything I said, it wouldn't have been no businesses down there but black folk. But so we use whatever, we have to use what we can to build ourselves up, and then we have to support one another. And when Bawana said use me, yeah, use the hell out of me, because at least you know I'm genuine. You know, you for sure know I'm not gonna sell you out. So yeah, you can damn sure use me just like I could use y'all. On that note, I yield the mic.
Appreciate that, Brother Bakari. Let's welcome in our boy Black Steel. Black Steel, how are you this week?
I'm doing wonderful, Coco. How's everyone tonight?
Good, good. Thanks for coming through.
Hey, Black Seal. Hey, Black
Hey,
Seal.
how you doing, Buana, Bakari? So I'm catching the tail end of this story. So we can go on to the next one. I really don't have much to add to this one. I really just caught the tail end of it. So I'm here for the next. I'm sorry I'm a little late tonight. I just had a little outing. But
it's all right.
I'm here. So yeah, we can go on to the next one. But I really don't have anything to add for this one. I'm sorry, but we can go on to the next topic.
All right, but before we go on, let me ask: is any other last words on this prompt? Should she be applauded?
No, she should. She shouldn't. She shouldn't be applauded, and she shouldn't be applauded. And like I say, I think that but she has given me an indication that Brother Bakari is a man who speaks the language of the people in America and United States, in particular in Atlanta. And if she is able to rise to high office as she has, a man like Brother Bakari has the ability to, with the backing of brothers like ourselves, play in the background. We ain't got to play the front ground. We ain't have to play the front ground. I think that if he ever has interest in rising to this particular level of office, I think that brothers like him will be very useful, very useful, very useful, very useful. And with the help and assistance, this is why I say the intellectual community, like the brothers like Kamji Verse and Koku, will be very important, because they will be able to forward their own particular ideas in terms of trying to assist him to reaching to a political level, and in trying to influence the lives of black people in his area. You start with small steps, and eventually the small steps become greater steps. But I'm a provoker. I'm sorry. I'm gonna just leave it there. I'll just leave it there.
I appreciate that, Buana. All right. KW Don 7 in the chat says there are no more Marion Berries. We If you're old enough, you'll understand that completely. Let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 5, probably the last one for tonight. I want to thank all of you who are tuned in tonight in the chat. Thank all of you who joined us on the panel tonight. I appreciate everyone who's listening to playback as well. Shoot the Breeze topic number 5 says, what is valid? The Saharan hypothesis or the Ethiopian model on the origin of modern West Africans. So this takes us back to YouTube for a video. We'll watch it and then we will comment about it.
In our previous video, we broke down the many central flaws of the Saharan hypothesis using architectonic, historical, genetic, and archaeological evidence to show that the ancient Sahara cannot adequately explain the origin of the material cultures of modern Africa, namely West Africa. Today, we will delve a little deeper into some more fatal flaws of the Saharan hypothesis and why its proponents, mainly those who traffic in West African tribalism, are unknowingly promoting white supremacy in Africana scholarship. The ancient Sahara lies at a crossroads between African civilizations and those of Eurasia. It features many genetic theoretical models such as the Great Back Migration, along with hypothetical populations such as the Basal Eurasian. Historically, numerous Western scholars have used the Sahara as a springboard to promote their Hamiticist theories that claim that white Caucasians pastoralists from West Asia descended into the Saharan zone and are responsible for African civilizations. Though the ideological descendants of these Hamiticists can vary, they are typically represented by modern Berber or Amazigh nationalists who promote the idea and concept of an indigenous white African, or an African who doesn't represent the stereotypical image of a Black person. Is there any evidence of these white Africans? Well, Cheikh Anta Diop documented the incursion of leucoderms, or those with pale skin, into Africa during the pre-dynastic Amratian culture, also called Nakata, one around 4000 to 3500 BCE. Diop made it clear that these pale immigrants did not change the bioevolutionary trajectory of the ancient Kemetic people. However, throughout classical African history, the Remenkemi often had conflict with the ancient Libyan people and sometimes depicted them with pale skin. This takes us deeper into some of the issues with the claim that the Sahara is the true cradle of African cultural unity. It opens the door for covert Hamiticists and white nationalists to steal African accomplishments and denigrate the legacy of African people. The Bovidian period is the major era of Saharan pastoralism, where we find the majority of the petroglyphs that depict the inhabitants of Tassili Niger in Algeria. According to archaeologist Andrew B. Smith, one of the major artistic styles of the Bovidian period featured people with pale skin, long hair, beards on the men, and long dresses on the women. This is similar to the depiction of some of the Timahu by the Remenkemi. Smith associates this art with so-called Proto-Berbers and cites skeletal data identifying them as Proto-Mediterraneans. When it comes to the Black faces of the Bovidian pastoral period, the conventional view is that they represent the ancestors of the Fulani people due to the many faunal rituals such as Brushgate Latori ceremony seen within Bovidian rock art that are observed today among the Fulani. However, if one considers the fact that the Fulani have a European lactase persistence gene, the fact that African pastoralism originated along the Sudano-Chadian border, and that the Fulani autosomally cluster close to the Omotic Ari people in East Africa, it is clear that the pastoral culture entered into the Western Sahara from the north and east, and that Eurasian carriers of a lactase persistence gene played a role in that process. It is clear from this data that these white Africans were a significant portion of the Saharan population during the pastoral period. The advocates of the Saharan hypothesis, who claim that Saharan pastoralists represent the historical cultural cradle of modern Africa, and that these Saharan pastoralists are the primary ancestors of ancient Kemet and modern West and Central Africans, they are saying that white Africans are the initiators of African civilization. That brings us to Tichet. There has been a lot of controversy, namely by the advocates of West African tribalism, about who founded the ancient Tichet culture. The reason why this is controversial is because these West African tribalists want to connect with the Wagadu civilization that is also known as Ghana. even though there has never been an identifiable operation sequence that connects Tichit prototypes with ancient Wagadu and the overwhelming majority of Soninke artifacts with respect to regalia, systematic theology, literature, and armaments have prototypes from the pharaonic civilization. The advocates of West African tribalism foolishly choose to promote the outdated tradition of isolationism with respect to the development of West African civilizations and cultures. They claim that the founders of the Tichit culture were Proto-Mandi speakers. This is hilarious when one considers that Tichit is a Berber toponym. If Tichit was created by Proto-Mande people, why don't we have a Mande term for that culture? Furthermore, according to Kevin McDonald, the Hod Depression that houses Tichit was filled with lakes during the Holocene optimum 9,500 to 5,500 years ago and only began to dry up 6,000 years ago before accepting incoming so-called Niger-Congo speakers 4,000 years ago. The exact point when the aforementioned Mande speakers would have entered into West Africa. It is clear from the material record alone that trying to connect so-called Proto-Mande people with Tichit in the absence of historical comparative linguistic reconstruction is immature. Kevin McDonald also cites research compiled by Patrick Munson, who has provided evidence for the invasion and defeat of the local Tichit culture by North African Berbers during the late period. This was supplemented by intensive cultural syncretization, which would affirm that North African Amazi played a primary role in the last vestiges of Tichit. If we are to accept a continuity between Tichit and Wagadu, even though there is virtually no archaeological evidence confirming this continuity was established by these so-called white Africans. This is yet another major L for the proponents of the Saharan hypothesis as it concerns West Africa, and another win for the racist white nationalists promoting Berber nationalists. As usual, comparative Africana studies will save the day. If we consider the material culture research of Kevin McDonald that affirms that the pre-Tichit Akrijit culture was dominated by hunter-gatherers. According to Lipson's genome-wide analysis of foragers in Cameroon, these ancient West African hunter-gatherers would be descendants and derives from the Shumlaka culture. They combined incoming pastoral technologies from northern and eastern Africa with their local foraging practices, and in turn developed a complex society over time. The Binford-Myers model states that both incoming pastoral traditions and local hunter-gatherer strategies played a role in the onset of agricultural production in Tichit. Musa Lam, in his analysis of Soninke oral traditions, along with a comparative archaeological study of the area during the Chebka period and the terminal Akinjeyer period, confirms that the Soninke people, who were masters of Equus ferus caballus, which is a species first domesticated in ancient Kimi, migrated into the Mauritania area and defeated the indigenous Kokoro people, who they identified as the founders of the culture now called Tichit. They represented one of many populations of Africans who migrated from the Hapi River Valley in East Africa into West Africa. Historically, whether we are dealing with the early Stone Age, Middle Stone Age, Late Stone Age, African Humid period, etc., it was Hapi River that helped populate the cultures and civilizations of the ancient Sahara, and not the other way around. The Sahara cannot be the cradle of African cultural unity because it does not have enough explanatory value to articulate the true origin and purpose of the material cultures of contemporary Africa. Despite the uproar of West African tribalist neophytes, it has been repeatedly affirmed both here and throughout the Africana academic, social, and cultural universe that the Hapi River Valley continuum is the culture cradle of African unity. Without it, there are no evolutionary roots of modern African societies. For those who advocate tribalism and the eternal ethnic separation of Eastern and Western Africans, these facts are a nightmare. However, for those who are the advocates of Pan-African unity, the truth presented here will be liberating.
Yes, indeed. So that's another Camdraverse video. You see the prompt. It says, "What is valid, the Saharan hypothesis or the Jopian model on the origin of modern West Africans?" So this is another opportunity for us to learn something that we probably don't study enough. In the chat, KW7, I had to shout this one out. He says the term white African, it's oxymoronic. Sugar Happy 262 plus seems to agree. Says, yep. That's why it makes no sense that the Green Sahara is the cultural cradle of African people. With all of that said, let me start with Brother Bakari. Bakari, what are your thoughts on what you just heard?
What is a white African? So if I heard right, did they say it was like white people that was were those people indigenous to there, or did they come in there? I'm trying to see if I heard correct.
Well, it depends on who you're talking to. You know, when you hear the term white African, generally speaking, you're referring to North Africans. So that would be the Amazigh people, and in some cases, the Egyptian Arabs. So whether or not they came in, people say that these are evolutionary traits. Like I have debates with Ngozi, who I'm actually trying to bring on to this channel, and he would be one of those who say that, you know, these lighter skinned North Africans were there, you know, since the Paleolithic times. Whereas others would say that, no, you know, they're actually the product of Orientalization and migrants from Eurasia, especially if you look at lactase persistence, like the Fulani have a lactase persistence gene, or a gene that allows them to digest milk, and it comes from Europeans or Eurasians. Whereas South Africa's milk digestion gene comes from East Africa, right? So there are certain pieces of evidence that you could use both ways, but generally they would be Africans who don't fit the so-called stereotypical Negro formality.
Well, okay. Well, it sounds crazy to me. That sounds crazy to me. Those are the people that I call Asiatic. I know black people like to say they're Asiatic, but those are the people that I call Asiatic. Those white people that came into Africa because they came into, as you call Eurasia now, but they came into Asia from Europe, and those were the people that was originally called Asiatics. Black people took on somebody else saying they Asiatics, but that's a whole nother thing. But that's why that's why I got confused that when they started talking about the white Africans, and I thought they said they were from around like sub-Saharan Africa, and you know that's why I got confused. So I'm gonna have to let y'all talk because dude just come to me. I don't know.
I love the fact that Brother Bakari is here. Brother Bakari, where Mike Tyson from again?
You say Mike Tyson?
Yeah, Mike Tyson. Where he from?
Mike Tyson?
In New York. Where's he from?
Brooklyn.
Which part? Which part? Oh, what's the name of it? What's the name of it? Okay, no problem. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So this is a teachable moment. So KMG verse. Explain to me, like a brother who's like Mike Tyson from Brooklyn, what I just heard from the sister who was speaking just now. Break it down for me like that. Break it down for me from a brother who was trying to understand where you coming from, and I'm from Brooklyn, from Bed-Stuy or wherever Mike Tyson from. Break down that information for me, what she just explained just now, please.
Well, basically what the shorty was saying. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, so you know, people online, they say West Africa has nothing to do with ancient Kemet, right? So their retort is West Africans come from the Sahara. After the Sahara dried up, the populations there migrated down. That's the retort in defense of those who say that West Africa has nothing to do with ancient Kemet. The problem with that's called the Saharan hypothesis. The problem with that is that a good majority of the epigraphic or the painting on the wall, the representations that the people made of themselves, the way that they showed themselves, a good number of that shows people that we may define as quote unquote pale skinned or quote unquote white. Some scholars say that these are the ancestors of the Berbers. The other portion of that population, which would be more closer to quote unquote black people, they have cultures more similar to the Fulani, which a lot of West Africans describe as invaders, right? So the point of the video is to show the flaws of the idea that modern West Africans are primarily the descendants of Saharan populations who migrated down. Now, some of them are, but what the video is trying to articulate, these two videos, is that the Nile Valley was the first starting point after the drying of the Sahara. And then after the Pharaonic civilization, many of these populations migrated across the Sahel into West Africa. So if you look through the facts of the video and what it was presenting, it displays how, by promoting the idea that modern West Africans are primarily the descendants of the Saharan people who migrated south after it dried up, you have to admit that Eurasians, or what you could call a white African, was a primary or significant role in that process.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I want you, I want you going forward to think, I want you going forward to think Catskills, New York, Mike Tyson, in terms of how you break down this information and explain it to your people. That is good. That is good. That's what I want. If I was to have, that is a good explanation of where we are at, and I appreciate that explanation. And I want you going forward to think Catskills, New York. Please, going forward.
Even Trigger Happy's point about the Kintampo complex. So Kevin McDonald, he uses the term bow wave diffusion, and basically what bow wave diffusion means is that populations from multiple points came and migrated into one point. That's what he uses to describe the development of Kintampo, which is in ancient Ghana. If I'm not mistaken, this would be about Ghana, 4,000 to 3,000 years ago. The problem with that is, in the Kintampo civilization, you also have the Pun Pun culture. And the Pun Pun culture is part of what's called the microlithic techno complex. And microlith is basically small stone, microlith or small stone. And they basically use quartz microliths for arrows and daggers to engage within fishing, hunting, and all that stuff, et cetera, et cetera. Those tools, those small stone quartz tools, are not related to the Saharan pottery and the other Saharan artifacts that we may find, in Kintampo. So these are two, divergent or separate populations. Also, if you look at some of the stone axes in Tlemcen, which is near Mali, and on the Niger or the Oya River Valley, a lot of these stone axes are derived from Darfur. They're part of the Darfurian or the neck axe culture. So to say that the Akan culture is solely from the Kintampo complex, when the Kintampo complex is mixed and consists of ancient West Africans, would be inaccurate. And also there's many evidences. I have it in my Sons of Pharaoh's video. When you look at the regalia, when you look at the formalities, even the lexical or the vocabulary terms used around the Oheni, which is what they use to define their ruler, there's many similarities with the pharaohs of the Nile River Valley. So no, the Kintampo civilization, though there are some similarities, especially if you look at the roulette ceramics, and the roulette is basically a stamping type used on potteries as a form of distinction. There is some evidence that, there was some drift from the northwest Mauritania area down into Ghana. But if you look at other ceramics, especially like, Gaji Ghana and the concave matting, that came from the east to the west. So you couldn't articulate the full totality of Akan society simply using the Kintampo culture.
I understand that. I understand. I actually understand that. Now that you broke it down, in terms of going almost on an elementary level, I understand that. I could follow. I could follow that, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Yes.
Let's go to Black Steel and see what he has to say.
Okay, so I'm here. So my knowledge of African prehistory is extremely limited. So I'm just sitting back and I'm soaking up all of this good knowledge. I really appreciate the knowledge I'm being given, because my educational background is in sociology. I took an anthropology class in college and I got an A, and that's it. So hearing this knowledge is very, very good. My understanding has always been that the Sahara Desert was lush and fertile. in prehistory, and then as it dried up at the end of the last ice age, the people migrated to different parts of Africa. I never had an understanding they were white people, they were non-Africans. I understand they were always Black Africans. So just me hearing this different hypothesis was shocking to me. So it's just interesting when I hear this, that Africa's greatness has to always be because of something else or what somebody else did. So just like, for example, we talked when we understood the bronzes in Benin. They keep them in the museums in Europe. When they first took these bronzes, they were originally thought to have been made by people from Atlantis, right? Because there's no way African people could construct such wonderful works of art. There's no way African people could build cities or build pyramids. It has to be some hidden source. It has to be alien. It has to be some other bullshit. So I don't really have too much to add to the conversation. I'm just really saying that whenever I hear about these so-called white Africans who just existed, it's just another way to denigrate and to, cast doubt on the genius of African people. We were the first scientists. We were the first philosophers, the first intellectuals. We were the ones who led mankind forward. But yet, it's always impossible for us to do something like that. So I'll leave it there. My knowledge is extremely limited. I would rather, gain and soak up some of this knowledge. But I appreciate you, everyone on the channel. So I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Black Steel. While the historian is here, ask him any question for any question that you may have in terms of African history. While the historian is here, I say, push it to him. Give him it. Make him work a little bit.
Okay. All right. I will. Give me a moment. Let me think of something. Let me cook.
Thank you for that, Black Steel and Buana. Let's go to Buana. Buana, which hypothesis do you support?
For me personally, because I have read some of the Diop's work, I am gonna follow his model, but like I say, the historian is here, someone who has studied the material way more so than I have. He would probably have a greater perspective, but my challenge, while he is here, is to ask him questions that I may have in my mind in terms of further reading that I would want to pursue in terms of understanding this material, of where he came from, what the diasporan perspective is, Diop's perspective is, and any more information or material or content that I would possibly need to read in terms of the hypothesis, in terms of the origins of West Africans. What would I need to read and going forward?
And yeah, I would say that basically the funny thing is that the majority of information about West African populations would be published in French, just because of the strength of French imperialism within Western Africa. So, being bilingual helps. But at the same time,
I read French. I read French, bro.
Oh, bien sûr. Parfaitement. Well, I would say that anything by Cheikh Anta Diop, anything by Hamadi Bokoum, anything by Dr. Nasir Sar, right? Anything by Lamin Baji, anything by Digi. These are some of the scholars, the post-Ethiopian scholars. Dr. Musa Lam. Dr. Musa Lam is an excellent scholar on the historical development of West African populations. So those guys, Nasir Sar, Musa Lam, Dika Akwa, Cheikh Anta Diop, Theophilo Benga, there's so many more, that I'm missing. But those guys, they would be excellent people to listen to. And even the European scholars. And, I use a lot of Western scholars simply because people accuse me of being too Afrocentric when I'm talking about Africa, because they don't think it's right to center Africa when you're speaking about Africa. So you'll catch me using Kevin McDonald, Christopher Arid at times, Roger Blanche, Supukova, at times. Sometimes I may use Huskayam, who's a French scholar. I may use Anne Maillard, who's a French scholar. and a variety of different scholars and texts, just to, you know, elucidate the point. And this is a very, very important video because it's pretty controversial. Most West African tribalists just simply go on the assumption that, you know, the Ouagadougou or the ancient Ghana civilization is immediately derived from Tchit without any archaeological evidence. And Kevin MacDonald, a European from Cambridge University, classified that assumption as linguistic speculation without any, you know, reconstruction evidence. And, you know, I've gotten into quite the scuffle with various people simply because, you know, X parts to Mark, which, you know, Mark, I wanted him to be on this channel because I wanted to have a discussion really, really bad. You know, Oni's been talking to me about it. Other trolls, like there's that African world history clown, and, you know, other West African tribalist acolytes who follow them, they simply have this line of thinking without any evidence, right? And when you look at the fact that from Tchit, the last stages of Tchit, where you see the onset of pastoralism and you see the onset of the development of these complex societies, if you look at Equisferus cabilis, right, that's a horse species. That species came into West Africa from Northeast Africa, right? So that's more evidence, you know, compiled by scholars such as Musa Lam and others, that there was an incursion into that region. And also, I would like to say is that oral history is important. Most of the oral histories of Western African civilizations articulate that they migrated from the east, right? Whether that's the Kaador or the Dogon people, whether that's the Soninke or the Sarakole people, or Ngalam, which is another name that's used to define them, the Wolof, the Fulani, the Akan, they all have the same scenario of coming from the Great Water. In Mande or Malinke, it's called Kurutumuba. And then in Soninke, it's called Kulumgunju, right? Kulumgunjuba, the Great Water. And that Great Water is none other than the Hapi, or the so-called Nile River. So it's pretty clear. And as you can see, none of the detractors really have much to say, even though they want to run on the idea that West Africans are, you know, eternally separate from East Africans and Central Africans, and going back into the beginning of time, a really religious view. They don't really have anything to say. And as you can see, when I post my evidence, you never see them come around.
Oh, I thought Juan was gonna ask a follow up.
No, man, no, man. I see, got you, man. I can check it out, man. I can check it out. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah. I was gonna add something there. Oh yeah. The book Fighting for Honor. Cam DeVers just touched on something there. He was able to pronounce the wording very smoothly, so I won't even attempt it. But that thing about the water being the underworld, I don't know if Black Steel remembers this, but we did a book review of that book that talked about that belief system with the waters, and you know.
Yes, I remember that. I do remember that.
Yeah. Does anyone want to ask Cam DeVers another question or drop another comment here? All right. In the chat, KW7 said Chief X peddles the idea that ancient Kemet wasn't black, but he's a Negro. Anyways. Okay. Trigger Happy 262 says that's why I'm in the pursuit of learning French. That paper on Akan divine kingship is in connection to Kemet was really good. So I guess that's maybe something Cam G broke down. I'm not certain.
Yeah, I have it in my video, Sons of Pharaohs.
I have another question, Kamji.
Yeah.
Besides French, what is another good language that you would probably need to learn in terms of getting more perspective in terms of African, a lot of these historical references and things like that? Because I know a lot of things were written in Arabic and French But what other language would you suggest in terms of us understanding the
I would say that German is definitely
German?
very, very important. Portuguese and Spanish are important, more so probably Portuguese to deal with where the African diaspora went to South America. Kiswahili is definitely important if you want to get familiar with the Swahili coast. And actually, there's
Kiswahili.
been recent genetic evidence. If you look at EM293, descended from EV515, which is a descendant of EM35 from East Africa, it validates the connection from the Pharaonic civilization to the Swahili coast. And this has been, confirmed by Western geneticists. And if you're interested in, the Western African context, you're looking more so towards EZ18941, EL15 or EL14 and EL16, as well as EV5001. And these are basically haplogroups that went from Eastern Africa, or actually the Lake Chad Basin to Northern Africa and then south, and southwest after the drying of the Sahara. So those would validate those. But linguistics, German, Portuguese for certain, Arabic for certain. If you want to know about the trade of, Kemetic and Nubian people to Americas during the Ma'afa, I would look at some of the Turkish sources because in the 18th and 19th.
Turkish, that's crazy. Okay.
Oh yeah, Turkish. The Turks sold quote unquote Kemetic and Nubian people to Remenkimi people to the Americas. They actually, during the 19th century, were a very pivotal part of the illegal slave trade. So many African Americans and Caribbean people actually have ancestors who came directly from Kemet and Kush or Nubia, right, during the 19th century. So Turks, Gerald Horne wrote a book about it, and he has a lot of references. That's a really important language as well. Then I would say, the popular African languages, Zulu. I'm learning a little bit of Creole, Yoruba, Kanuri, Hausa, Wolof, Igbo, Soninke. Like you can't go wrong with any of the popular African languages.
Kamji, how many languages you speak?
Fluently or knowledgeable?
Conversational.
Conversationally, maybe about eight or nine.
Eight? That's crazy. Okay. All right. Wow, that's crazy. All right.
But they just came from my research because I read a lot of I used to do a lot of work in Portuguese. I took AP Spanish in high school, but I don't actually use it as much now, even though I want to. I took a Remenkimi or Coptic, so I know basic phrases there. German as well. Like I've taken some German, obviously spoken French since a very young age. English, obviously, and I could conversate in Kiswahili. I spent some time in Zanzibar. Madumba and Shupamem being, Western Cameroonian languages. I have some articulation there. I have a lot of Yoruba friends and Igbo friends, so like I could have a conversations in those. And I also have an uncle who lives in Romania as well, so we talk sometimes.
But being bilingual is very important in terms of understanding, piecing together a lot of information.
Yeah,
because
of course.
Right, absolutely. Okay, that's right. That's right. Okay.
Like if you're not, honestly, for me personally, I don't respect people who say that they're legitimate Africana researchers and they can't, engage in multiple languages. To me, there's some fraudulence, behind that.
All right. If there's no last words, then that's going to be the show tonight. I want to thank all of you who tuned in tonight, especially my panel. So let me ask them to shout something out good this week or something they have interest in. Let's start with Black Steel. Black Steel, what would you like to shout out this week?
Nothing really to shout out tonight. I'm just caught the tail end of the show. But everything was good. Shout out to all the guests and all the listeners as well. I'll see you guys next week.
Appreciate you, Black Steel. Brother Bakari, what would you like to shout out this week?
Excuse me. I plan to do do a show, do a live tomorrow about black businesses. I see a grocery store and a couple more things I want to talk about. I got to make sure I got everything in order before I do it and set it up. But what I want to shout out is y'all shop black. Shop black, spin black, be black, buy black, think black, love black. That's what we need to be doing. I'm gonna keep saying this. The Buy Black Challenge. That's what I'm shouting out. Black Steel, take your ass to Progress Village and spend your money over there with the black folks in Progress Village. That's where you need to be at, Black Steel. But on that note,
Yo, man, I'll be
go.
I'll be at Private Village tomorrow, man. You know, my people stay out there. I'll be out there. Oh, Bakari, what was the name of the grocery store in Jacksonville? Because I'm actually in Jacksonville right now.
The Yellow Banana. It used to be Save-A-Lots. Now they changing them to Yellow Banana.
Okay, all right. I'm up here visiting my friends, so my lady friends. So I will swing by there tomorrow.
Yeah, it's the Yellow Banana. Yeah, that's Shop Black. And you know what? And like this brother who was on here speaking, what's his name again?
Kamji
Who was
verse.
talking about the Camu verse?
Kamji.
Kamji, is that the name of your channel? Is that the name of your channel? Kamji verse?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm gonna find it. CAMG. How do you spell it? Okay, CAMGI verse.
KAMGI verse.
KAMGI verse. All right, I'm gonna see a brother like this I can listen to because he don't, and I can learn from him because it don't sound like he trying to hustle and scam nobody, like the guy KW Don mentioned in the chat, who he said is that dude completely switched up what he said so he can debate and ask people for money. Egypt, now all of a sudden the Egyptians were white and everybody was right. I listened to what's his name, Doctor. He do the Egypt on the Potomac tour. Man, I can't think of his name right now. Oh my goodness.
Anthony Browder.
Who?
Anthony Browder.
Yeah, I listened. Yes, I saw a thing, and I have to do more with him, find more of his stuff, because he literally showed symbols in Egyptian pyramids and the exact same symbols and everything over in, what was it? Because he's the only black archaeologist over there doing digs, right? So he found these symbols doing digs. He was in Egypt, and then he found them over in West Africa, the exact same symbols with the exact same meaning, huh?
Ghana. The Adinkra symbols.
Yeah,
He
so
basically the Sankofa bird. He saw the Sankofa bird, in the Nubian area, and then he basically found the same symbol in Ghana. And there's multiple different, references of that all across.
Yep, he showed a few symbols. Yep, showing the connection with West Africa and East Africa. And you got people on YouTube because they want to try to make some money. I'm going to debate him and prove he's wrong. I'm glad he didn't debate none of them clowns and give him no props. And don't even give him an opportunity to make no money off you talking about let's do a debate. Forget them, because most of them they're divisive anyway. But that's what I want to shout out right there, man. Peace and love.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So
I'll
go. Kamji verse just basically show and express, and expose the fact that, when Marcus Garvey talking about the Universal Nigger Association is universal. He is able to speak the languages of people who look just like him, not only in the English-speaking world, but in the French-speaking world, because I think there's more people speak French in the black world as opposed to English. But he is able to understand that this is a principle with us. So we have to be universal people. And I understand the French is a colonial language, but we also have to understand the African languages in terms of Kiswahili and all these other all these other languages as well, because we are universal people. So we must be able to communicate and have bonds and form ties just as I am able to converse with my brother from Mississippi. I should be able to converse with my brother from any French-speaking area in a black world. Unfortunately, the black brothers speak French as well in the black world because of colonialism. So we must be able to be universal. You can't just have one approach to the world, because our people have been spread out all around the diaspora. So all our brothers are tasked with the responsibility not only to be able to speak to our brothers in one form, but in all kinds of other forms. I say challenge yourself. I say challenge yourself. But I appreciate the dialogue and the conversation tonight. I appreciate you, Camby Verse, for the dialogue, and also Koku, and also Brother Bakari for the conversation tonight. But I'll leave it there.
I appreciate it. Camdyverse, don't be a stranger. Let's try to do some work together in the future. You know, you're always welcome on Shoot the Breeze. Your videos are actually played here pretty often. So you know, make sure come through again.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to. You know, when I get offered a debate, I always mention your channel because it's a channel that everybody can come on to have a discussion.
Yes, sir. All right. Again, that's the show for tonight. We'll be back here again next week. I want to thank everyone who was in the chat, everyone who participated on the panel. Yes, yes.
I want to say one last thing. You know, on the chief executive, some of these, you know, racist Berber nationalists. You know, on my channel we go over a lot of the different evidence. You know, some of that is grammatical. Kemet as a feminine singular collective adjectival noun, you know, refers to people, not the soil. And you even see that in modern African languages, like in Akan, you got Obibini, black human, right? And they refer to Africa as Abibiman, right? Or the black land. In Bambara, it's a black person. In Farafina would be the land of black people. In Kikongo of Congo, you have Ndombe, and that's black man. In Siabandombe would be Africa. In Europe, you have Adulawo, that's a black person. In Ile Adulawo, that would be Africa or the land of black people. In Wolof, you have Nitkunul, black person. And then Reu Nitkunul, the land of black people. Igbo, Ndi Isi Oji, black man. Ala Ndi Isi Oji, the land of black people. In Medumba of Western Cameroon, you have Mbunesen, black person. Then you have Chambunesen, that would be the land of black people. So you have
Camdyverse, your mic cut out.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Where did I stop?
You know, just finish your last thoughts, and so that we could wrap it up.
Yeah, so you have this from classical to contemporary times, and we've always articulated that we are black. And you know, you can go to my channel. I have videos like articulating the genetic evidence connecting ancient Africa to modern Africa. In my last video dealing with haplography and the Y-full genetics tree. So, you know, hit me up on Cash App if you support the content, and I greatly appreciate all the subs to my channel. And shout out to, you know, Cuckoo and all of the different people on the panel for having a great conversation.
Thank you as well. All right. That's it for tonight. We'll be back next week. Trying to keep the show 3 hours or less. We'll be back next week. Make sure to join the Discord. Post your topics that you'd like to see discussed. Make sure to share the content. Comment in the comment section after the show is posted. Let's continue the conversations. Anyway, guys, until next time, you guys be good. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.